My boyfriend looked me dead in the eye and told his high school crush I was just somebody. So I quietly engineered a romance between her and his roommate, exposed his secret digital double life, and let his own lies dismantle his entire world. 8 months together, erased in a single, effortless sentence. I was standing maybe 3 feet away from him, holding his favorite craft IPA, a ridiculously hoppy brew he only allowed himself on Thursday nights. I had bought it on my way to his firm's happy hour because I knew he would forget to eat dinner, and I knew he would want something in his hand that wasn't the cheap Pinot Grigio some senior associate always tried to push on him. I walked into that dimly lit, loud downtown bar with the cold glass sweating in my palm, a smile already forming on my face. I found him standing at the mahogany counter with a woman I didn't recognize. I watched his face do something I had never seen it do before. It went completely blank, then carefully, rigidly controlled, like a machine recalculating a route in real time. "This is just someone from my grad program," Julian said. He gestured at me the exact same way you would gesture at a coat rack. Not his girlfriend. Not even a friend. Just someone. Out of 9 months of pure muscle memory, I leaned in for a hug. He stuck his hand out instead. It was formal, stiff, the kind of handshake you give a vendor at a corporate networking event. I took his hand because my brain had short-circuited and my body didn't know what else to do. Her name was Vanessa. She was holding a vodka soda with a lime, and she had a bright, melodic laugh that carried effortlessly across the crowded room. Before I had even finished shaking his hand, Julian was already turning his body back toward her, already laughing at whatever joke she had been in the middle of telling before I interrupted them by simply existing. I stood there holding his IPA. Nobody took it from me. I held it for exactly 11 minutes by the digital clock on my phone, because counting the minutes was the only thing keeping my knees from buckling. And then, without saying a word, I set the sweating glass on a random cocktail table, walked out into the freezing parking lot, got into my car, and didn't cry. I want to be incredibly clear about that fact. I didn't shed a single tear that night. I just sat there with my hands gripping the leather steering wheel, doing the brutal math in my head. 9 months of Thursday matcha lattes. 9 months of him introducing me to his mother, Diane, over Sunday video calls. 9 months, completely obliterated in the 4 seconds it took him to decide I was nobody. That was the night everything truly started. But to understand why it happened, and why it ended in such a spectacular, devastating way, you have to go back much further than that crowded bar. You have to go back to the beginning, before Vanessa had a name I recognized. Before I understood that I wasn't actually dating a man, I was dating a phantom memory he was still desperately trying to rewrite. My name is Chloe. I was 25 that year, in the second year of a grueling master's program in urban planning at a university in a cold, unforgiving northeastern city. If you have ever sat in a 2-4-hour library basement, drinking awful vending machine coffee at 2 in the morning while trying to finish a spatial analysis problem set, you have probably sat in a room exactly like the one where I first met Julian. He was 26, 1 year ahead of me in the exact same program. The first time I ever really noticed him was in late September, at a scratched wooden study table, when he slid a blueberry scone and a matcha latte across the table without saying a single word. He had noticed I had skipped lunch 3 days in a row. He didn't try to be clever or smooth. He just set the pastry down, gave a small nod, and went back to highlighting his textbook. I ate it in 4 bites. When I looked up, he was already watching me, half smiling, like he had been waiting to see if I would notice the gesture. That was Julian in those early months. He was quiet, deeply attentive, and a little bit awkward in a way that read as charmingly sincere rather than performative. He remembered which adjunct professors I was terrified of and which ones I secretly admired. He learned my ridiculously complicated coffee order without ever having to ask twice. He brought me that same matcha latte and scone every single Thursday for the rest of that semester. It was a tradition that started as a silent joke and rapidly became a foundational fact of our relationship. It became something so reliable that I eventually stopped thanking him for it, the same way you stop thanking the sun for rising. We officially started dating in November, about 2 months into knowing each other. A massive study group eventually dwindled into a 2-person dinner, which turned into him walking me home in the biting wind, lingering at my front door, and asking if he could see me on a night that had absolutely nothing to do with exams. I said yes. I remember thinking, with the kind of blinding certainty you only ever get to have a few times in your 20s, that I had found someone incredibly real. Someone who paid attention. Someone who noticed the microscopic details, because those small details were where he lived. His roommate was a guy named Carter. Carter was also in our program, a year behind me, ridiculously easygoing, and a little too blunt for his own good. He was the kind of person who would tell you if your shirt was inside out before you even had to ask. The kind of friend who memorized your birthday without needing a Facebook reminder and who would show up at 7 a.m. on a Sunday to help you move heavy furniture. Carter liked me instantly. He told Julian this multiple times, according to Julian himself, who repeated it back to me with a glowing sense of pride. It was as if Carter's approval was a prestigious stamp on our relationship's passport. I need to tell you about Vanessa now, because she is the center of this, but not in the cliché way you might expect. Vanessa wasn't a random stranger who materialized out of thin air to steal my boyfriend. She was a name I had heard long before Julian ever met me. She was a ghost who lived in the dusty corners of his stories about his adolescence. Julian grew up in a wealthy suburb about 3 hours away from our university. Vanessa was the girl whose locker was 3 down from his. She was the girl he had carried an agonizing, silent torch for from freshman year all the way through graduation. She was the girl who dated the captain of the varsity swim team, and then a string of other popular boys who were never, ever Julian. By his own admission, she was barely aware he even existed. He told me this entire story on our 3rd date, over cheap Thai food near campus, using the specific, dismissive tone men use when they want you to think they have completely outgrown something pathetic. I was so obsessed with this girl in high school, he had said, laughing at his younger self. Vanessa never had a clue. She didn't even know my last name until we were juniors. I laughed right along with him, because it sounded like a firmly closed chapter. It was a funny, self-deprecating anecdote about teenage longing, the exact kind of story you tell a new partner to prove how much you've matured. I had absolutely no way of knowing that night that the chapter wasn't closed at all. It was just sitting there, waiting for a sequel. There was an earlier incident, back in January, about 3 months into dating, that I didn't think much of at the time. It reads entirely differently now. It is funny how early warning signs always look like ordinary scenery until you know exactly what they were warning you about. Julian's college friend group was having a reunion dinner at a nice steakhouse downtown. These were people he hadn't seen in nearly 3 years. On the drive over, he casually mentioned that someone named Maya might be there. Maya was a woman he had a brief, messy fling with during his sophomore year of undergrad. "It's really not a big deal," he said, his hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly. "Just, don't make it weird." I didn't know what "don't make it weird" meant until we actually walked into the restaurant and he introduced me to 6 different people by my full name and my degree program. "This is my girlfriend, Chloe. She's getting her master's in urban planning." Then he reached Maya. He looked at her and simply said, "Maya, hey. Long time." There was no introduction. There was no mention of me standing right beside him, holding his coat. Maya glanced at me, her eyebrows furrowed in confusion, and Julian steered the conversation towards someone's new job so violently fast I almost got whiplash. I brought it up in the car on the way home. He got incredibly defensive. He told me I was reading into absolutely nothing, that he and Maya had a weird history, and that it would have been incredibly awkward to make a big production out of introducing his new girlfriend. He told me I was being overly insecure over a 5-second conversational omission. I remember accepting that explanation, because accepting it was so much easier than fighting about it. He sounded so incredibly certain, and 3 months in, I still deeply believe that the version of him who brought me matcha lattes was the truest version of him. I believed every strange behavior was just a minor glitch rather than a fundamental feature of his personality. There was one more early detail worth mentioning. Something I didn't think about again until the very end. In February of that first year, a full 6 months before Vanessa ever moved to our city, Julian mentioned almost offhandedly that he had looked up her LinkedIn profile the week before. "Just curious," he said, shrugging as he washed dishes in my sink. "Wondering where she ended up after college." I asked him if that was a normal thing to do. Checking in on someone from high school completely out of nowhere. He laughed it off easily. He said everyone does that sometimes. He said it didn't mean anything at all. I let it go, because it seemed like such a minor, trivial thing. A few idle minutes of scrolling on the internet, the kind of harmless, nostalgic curiosity most people indulge in without it amounting to anything sinister. I didn't know yet that it wasn't idle. I didn't know it was a deeply ingrained habit. A habit repeated quietly and often enough that by the time she actually arrived in our city, he already knew more about her daily routine than I knew about most of my own family members. That was the shape our relationship took over that first year. It was warm, it was consistent, but it was occasionally punctured by these tiny, bizarre moments where he seemed to completely disappear from my side whenever we were in rooms that contained women from his past. I filed every single incident away as a weird coincidence. I didn't yet understand that Julian's affection for me was incredibly real, but it was also entirely conditional. It was contingent on an audience that didn't include anyone who might remind him that he used to be a loser. Vanessa moved to our city in July. That was a detail I learned secondhand, from a mutual friend in our cohort, not from Julian himself. That alone should have told me everything. She had taken a lucrative job at a corporate sustainability firm just 12 blocks from Julian's office. When he finally mentioned it to me, 3 full days after I already knew, he did it so casually. He slid her name into a boring sentence about the traffic on his morning commute. I remember watching his face very closely as he said her name, searching for any micro-expression, and finding absolutely nothing except a profound stillness that felt way too deliberate to be accidental. I didn't know yet what that stillness meant. But I was about to learn. Update 1. The happy hour where he called me a stranger wasn't the beginning of the pattern. It was just the moment the pattern became so loud it was undeniable. It was the first time I couldn't explain it away as a misread glance or a clumsy introduction. But once I actually started paying attention, once I went back through the previous months with clear eyes, I realized the escalation had been building for weeks in small, agonizing steps that I had repeatedly talked myself out of noticing. The very first step came 2 weeks before the happy hour, at a work function Julian explicitly hadn't invited me to. I only knew it was happening because he mentioned it afterward in passing. When I asked him how it went, he shrugged and said, "Fine. Boring. Nothing to report." I later found out, through a photo one of his co-workers posted on Instagram, that Vanessa had been there. He hadn't lied about the party happening. He had just unilaterally decided that it was the kind of party where I didn't belong. He hadn't told me why, and I hadn't pushed, because pushing felt crazy and paranoid, and I desperately didn't want to be the paranoid girlfriend. I told myself that was the ceiling. I told myself it couldn't get any worse than being quietly excluded from a boring corporate event. Then came the happy hour. The handshake. The word someone, that shattered the first ceiling completely, and honestly, it should have ended things right then and there. I want to be brutally honest about that, because I know anyone reading this expects me to say I dumped him on the spot. I didn't. I stayed. I stayed because he apologized that night in the freezing parking lot. He chased me out to my car, banging on the window, breathless, saying he panicked. He said seeing Vanessa again in person after all those years had completely thrown him off, and he swore on his life it would never happen again. He looked entirely wrecked. He looked genuinely like a man who was horrified by his own toxic behavior. I believed him, because believing him was infinitely easier than accepting that the man I loved had just erased my existence to look single in front of a woman from 10th grade. It happened again exactly 3 weeks later. That was the second ceiling, and it broke so much faster than the first one had. Carter was turning 25, and he threw a birthday dinner at his apartment, the exact same apartment he shared with Julian. It was a comfortable, familiar space I had been to literally dozens of times. Vanessa was there, because she and Carter had stayed loosely in touch since high school. In hindsight, that detail is almost hilarious given what would eventually happen to the three of them. Julian left me at the front door. I don't mean figuratively, I mean literally. I walked in right behind him, and he immediately crossed the crowded living room toward Vanessa before I had even taken my winter coat off. Carter walked over to Julian and Vanessa a few minutes later. Carter, clearly confused, asked Julian who I was, since Julian had seemingly forgotten he had a girlfriend of 9 months standing in his hallway. Julian looked at Carter, then at Vanessa, and said, "Oh, Chloe? She's thinking about subletting the spare room for the summer." They didn't have a spare room. It was a tiny 2-bedroom apartment with a dirty mattress in the office nook that Carter used for storing his camping gear. Julian made up a lie so incredibly specific, and so utterly unnecessary, that I stood in the doorway trying to figure out if I was having a stroke. At some point later in the evening, Vanessa casually asked Julian if he was seeing anyone. I was standing 5 feet away from them, holding a paper plate with a slice of Carter's birthday cake on it. I was closer to Julian in that moment than I had been all night, because he had been actively running away from me since we arrived. He looked Vanessa in the eye and said he was keeping his options open. He was keeping his options open. 5 feet away from his girlfriend. I set the paper plate down on Carter's kitchen island, turned around, and went to the closet to find my coat. Julian caught up with me in the hallway, grabbing my arm, apologizing again. He said he didn't know why he said it. He said old habits die hard around her. He promised he would talk to her, clarify things, and make it right. I looked at him and told him there was absolutely nothing to clarify, because there never should have been anything to clarify in the first place. He nodded frantically, like he understood. I don't think he did. Not yet. The third ceiling came at Julian's company picnic. This is the step that finally moved me out of paralyzing hurt and into something much colder, much sharper, and infinitely more useful. Julian told me 2 days before the event that it was strictly employees only. He said I shouldn't come, that it would be weird and awkward to bring a +1 to something that small. I said, okay. I trusted him. Then, the night before the picnic, I was scrolling through his firm's public Facebook page out of idle curiosity, and I saw the digital flyer. It read in massive, bold letters, +1's welcome. Bring your favorite people. I didn't say a single word to him about it. I wanted to see exactly what he would do. He posted 14 pictures from that picnic over the course of the afternoon. Co-workers standing around a charcoal grill, a volleyball net, a group shot, and right in the middle of the album was a photo of him with his arm slung casually, intimately around Vanessa's shoulders, both of them laughing at something just outside the frame. He liked every single one of her photos within 3 minutes of her posting them. It was a level of manic attentiveness he had never once shown my own social media, where a post from me could sit for a week without him so much as acknowledging it. That was the absolute breaking point. Not the handshake. Not the fake sublet lie. Not even the lie about the picnic itself. It was the sight of his arm around her shoulders in a photo he posted publicly for the world to see. 14 images announcing to anyone paying attention that he was single, unattached, and keeping his options open. Exactly as he had told her at Carter's birthday. I sat on the edge of my bed that night with my phone glowing in my hand, and I felt something deep inside my chest go very quiet and very clear. I need to explain Julian's psychology here, because I don't think he was a cartoon villain stroking a mustache. Painting him as a monster doesn't do justice to the pathetic reality of what actually happened. Julian wasn't naturally cruel. He was, I eventually came to understand, a deeply insecure man who had spent his entire adolescence feeling invisible to the one person whose attention he craved most. He had built an entire, fragile architecture of self-worth around the delusion that being chosen by Vanessa would finally prove to the world that he wasn't a loser. I think he genuinely loved me in the specific hours when Vanessa wasn't in the room. But the absolute second she was, some wounded, desperate 15-year-old part of his brain took the wheel, and that part of him didn't care who he had to run over to get her attention. That doesn't excuse what he did. It just explains it. Those are two very different things, and I had to learn that difference the hard way. I planted a detail in that period without fully understanding I was doing it. Julian had a terrible habit, one I had noticed months earlier and mostly forgotten, of leaving his laptop logged into his personal Gmail account when he worked from my apartment. He did it because he trusted me, and because he was generally careless about privacy in the specific way people are when they've never faced consequences. I didn't go snooping through his email that week, I want to be honest about that, but I remembered the habit. I filed it away in my brain, the same way you memorize the location of a fire extinguisher. You hope you never have to use it, but you're glad you know where it is. I started making my decisions very differently after that company picnic. Not reckless decisions. Cold, careful ones. I got coffee with Carter the following Tuesday. It was a casual thing, the kind of hangout that had happened a dozen times before, since Carter and I had become genuinely good friends over the months of overlapping social circles. Carter was sweet, currently single, and, as it turned out, completely done watching his roommate humiliate me in his own home. We didn't plot some evil mastermind scheme that day. I want to be extraordinarily precise about that, because there is a massive difference between what I actually did and what people accuse me of doing when they hear this story through the grapevine. I didn't ask Carter to seduce Vanessa. I didn't hand him a script or a master plan. I simply mentioned, in the completely natural flow of conversation over our lattes, how incredibly sharp Vanessa seemed. I mentioned how funny she had been at his birthday party. I said it was almost impressive that Julian hadn't worked up the nerve to actually ask her out after all these years of pathetic hovering. I said it lightly, rolling my eyes, almost as a joke. The kind of passing comment you make about someone else's stalled romantic ambitions. Carter laughed, taking a sip of his coffee, and said, honestly, someone should just ask her out already and put him out of his misery. I looked at him over the rim of my cup and said, maybe someone should. That was it. That was the entire extent of my grand manipulation that day. I planted one single sentence and let it grow completely on its own, in soil that Julian himself had spent months preparing. Trivia night came 2 weeks later at a dive bar near campus that hosted a weekly quiz league. Half of our urban planning cohort was in it. Julian told me he was going with coworkers. He said it was super low-key and nothing I needed to worry about missing. I showed up anyway. Carter was already there when I arrived. We sat down together at a sticky booth near the back, and I watched Julian's face when he walked in 10 minutes later and saw us sitting side by side. His expression was worth every single ounce of the pain that came next. It cycled rapidly through intense confusion, then sheer panic, then a forced, brittle, terrifying smile as he made his way over and sat down at a table across the room with 2 coworkers I vaguely recognized. Vanessa arrived 20 minutes later. She was scanning the crowded room, and Carter stood up and waved her over before Julian even had the chance to lift his arm. I watched the entire thing unfold like a stage play I had written but wasn't allowed to direct. Carter bought her a drink. He made her throw her head back and laugh twice within the first 10 minutes. It was easy, unforced laughter. The kind of laughter that happens when someone isn't desperately performing for you. By the second round of trivia questions, I saw them exchange phones to put their numbers in. I saw Julian's eyes flick over from his table at least 20 times. I saw him completely lose track of a geography answer he definitely knew. I saw him excuse himself twice to go to the bar for drinks he wasn't drinking. He cornered Carter near the dark hallway by the bathrooms before the night ended. I wasn't there for the conversation, but Carter told me about it in vivid detail the next morning, and I believed every single word because it matched exactly how Julian operated when he thought no one was keeping score. You know, I've had a thing for her since high school, right? Julian had hissed, blocking Carter's path. It's really messed up to go after a girl you know I've liked for 10 years. Carter, to his absolute credit, did not back down an inch. Dude, you have a girlfriend, Carter said. Why does it even matter who she talks to? And there it was. The fourth ceiling, shattering in real time in a dirty bar hallway, with the man holding Vanessa's number standing right in front of him. Julian panicked. He panicked the way liars panic when they are finally cornered by their own contradictions. Chloe isn't my girlfriend, Julian stammered. We just hang out sometimes. 9 months. Erased in one sentence. Again. This time in front of the exact person whose approval Julian most desperately wanted to keep. Carter told me this the next morning over the phone. His voice was completely flat, vibrating with something between profound disbelief and utter disgust. He said, "You two just hang out sometimes," Carter repeated. "I've watched you two for almost a year. I've been in the room during his mom's Sunday video calls. I've seen the Thursday pastries. That's not hanging out, Chloe. I don't know what the hell he's doing, but I'm not going to be a part of it." 2 weeks after that hallway conversation, Carter and Vanessa were officially dating. I found out the way I found out most things that mattered that fall. Secondhand. Through a photo. This time it was posted by Vanessa herself. It was a picture of the two of them at a gorgeous rooftop bar, with a caption that said something about finally taking a chance on something good. I didn't feel triumphant when I saw it. I didn't pump my fist in the air. I felt something much quieter and infinitely stranger. It was a kind of grim, hollow satisfaction mixed with an ache I couldn't fully name. Because even as I sat there watching Julian's lifelong fantasy collapse in real time, I was still actively grieving the version of him I had fallen for at that library table. I was grieving a man who had never actually existed anywhere except in the specific hours when Vanessa wasn't around. Julian showed up at my apartment door at 11:30 at night, 3 days after the rooftop photo made its rounds through our shared social circles. His hair was wildly disheveled in a way that told me he had been running his hands through it for hours. He looked completely hollowed out. It was the particular kind of devastating hollow that comes from watching the one thing you wanted slip away entirely because of your own stupid choices. Though he wasn't quite ready to frame it that way yet. "What the hell did you tell Carter?" he demanded before I had even fully opened the door. I told him the exact truth, because the truth was so mundane it was almost hilarious. I told him I had simply mentioned that Vanessa seemed nice. That was it. That was all it took. One single sentence dropped into a casual coffee conversation, and the entire elaborate structure Julian had built around his teenage fixation had crumbled into dust, because it had never been sturdy in the first place. It had been held together by nothing but Vanessa's total obliviousness and everyone else's polite silence. He couldn't admit, standing in my doorway in the middle of the night, why any of this bothered him without admitting what he had done to me over the previous 3 months. So, he did what cowards do when they are trapped by their own history. He softened. He walked in, sat down heavily on the arm of my couch, his voice suddenly dropping to a gentle, pleading register. He called me his girlfriend for the first time in a month, unprompted, like the word itself was a diamond he was bestowing upon me. "You're my girlfriend, Chloe," he whispered, looking up at me with wet eyes. "You know that, right?" I looked at him and asked, very calmly, why he had explicitly denied that fact 3 separate times in front of other people if that was genuinely what I was to him. He blamed office dynamics for the happy hour. He blamed the alcohol and the chaos of Carter's birthday for the fake sublet lie. He said the company picnic was strictly a corporate event, and he hadn't thought I would ever see the digital flyer, a claim that made it so much worse, not better, because it meant the lie hadn't been an accident of miscommunication. It had been a highly calculated bet that I wouldn't check his work. I told him I needed space. He promised me he had changed. He swore that seeing Carter and Vanessa together had shown him a dark side of himself he didn't like. He begged for a real chance to fix things. I had heard a nearly identical version of that exact promise in a freezing parking lot months earlier, delivered in the exact same wrecked, sincere tone. It had lasted exactly 3 weeks before the sublet lie. He texted me 38 times that week. I counted them, the same way I had counted the 11 minutes I stood holding his beer. Apologies. Old photos from our first month together, pictures of matcha lattes, a screenshot of a voice memo he had apparently saved of me laughing at a stupid joke in his kitchen. Long paragraphs about how he missed the version of us before all of this mess started. I read every single message. I answered none of them. I buried myself in my thesis instead, drowning in footnotes and zoning laws and the specific, beautiful relief of problems that actually had correct answers. Vanessa caught my arm in a grocery store parking lot about 10 days into my silence. It was the first time we had spoken one-on-one since everything had unraveled. She looked deeply uncertain, guarded, like she wasn't entirely sure whether I would scream at her or ignore her. "Can I ask you something?" she said, pulling her coat tighter around herself. "Julian has been acting so incredibly strange at work since Carter and I got together. Does that have anything to do with you too?" I could have lied. I could have protected Julian's dignity the exact same way I had been protecting it for nearly a year without even fully realizing it. Instead, I told her the absolute truth. I told her plainly, without a single ounce of embellishment, because she deserved to know what she had unknowingly been a part of. I told her about the 9 months, the 3 public denials, the fake sublet story, the company picnic he actively hid from me so he could have both of us in his orbit without either of us knowing about the other. Her face went paper white under the harsh parking lot lights. She told me she had thought his constant hovering at her desk over the past few months was just overly friendly coworker behavior, the kind you brush off because it seems pathetic but harmless. Now she understood exactly what it had been. She apologized to me, genuinely, her voice shaking. I stopped her and told her none of it was her fault. She hadn't asked for any of this, she had just existed, the exact same way she had existed in high school, completely oblivious to the crushing weight Julian had assigned to her. 2 days after that conversation, Julian texted me, furiously accusing me of sabotaging his career, of turning Vanessa against him, of poisoning Carter's opinion of him. I looked at the massive block of angry blue text for a long time before I finally responded. I called him pathetic. He called me bitter. Neither of us apologized after that exchange, and the texting finally, mercifully, stopped. We met one final time at the exact same coffee shop near campus where we had our third date. The one where he had told me the story about Vanessa in high school like it was a closed chapter. He looked wrecked in a completely different way than he had at my door. He looked hollower. More honest, maybe. Or at least closer to honest than he had allowed himself to be up to that point. I keep thinking about high school, he said, wrapping both hands tightly around a paper coffee cup he wasn't drinking from. Vanessa. It was never really about her. Not even now. It was about the version of myself that finally got the girl who never looked at me twice. I think I've been chasing that version of myself since I was 15 years old. I looked at him. I understood him. But understanding why someone breaks your bones is not the same thing as giving them absolution. And I said exactly that, plainly, without cruelty. 3 public denials. A fake sublet story. A company picnic you hid from me on purpose, betting correctly that I wouldn't find out. I listed them off calmly. Those weren't accidents born out of sudden panic, Julian. Panic explains one bad moment. It doesn't explain a sustained pattern of behavior across 3 months. Each incident was more calculated than the last. Those were choices you made. Over and over again, about exactly where I ranked in your life. And the answer, every single time, was beneath a woman who didn't even know your last name until junior year. We broke up right there. At that sticky wooden table. Under the exact same string of cafe lights that had once seemed so romantic on our third date. And now just seemed like ordinary, dusty electrical fixtures doing an ordinary job. He reached into his pocket and handed back the spare key to my apartment without saying a word. He slid it across the table like a defeated chess piece, conceding a match that had ended 5 moves earlier than either of us wanted to admit. I put it in my coat pocket and walked out first. I didn't look back to see his face. I had already spent enough months studying it. Update 2. Weeks passed. Carter and Vanessa's relationship moved forward with a kind of unhurried, easy confidence that felt, at least from the outside, like the exact opposite of everything that had come before it. They started apartment hunting together in early spring, looking at expensive listings near the consulting firm where she worked. It was the kind of practical, grounded relationship milestone that Julian, for all his obsessive romanticizing, had never once brought up with me in 9 months. Julian's social media went entirely quiet for a while after the breakup. It was a silence that felt, at the time, like something approaching genuine self-reflection. Then, without any warning, it exploded with a vague, lengthy post about growth. It was a black and white photo of a sunrise over the city skyline, paired with a massive caption about shedding old skin and becoming a better version of himself. It was the exact kind of post people write when they desperately want an audience to witness a profound transformation they haven't actually undergone. I closed the app that day and didn't open it again for a very long time. A mutual friend still working at Julian's firm texted me a few weeks later. She told me Julian had started therapy, claiming he had self-worth issues, and that he had taken to asking his co-workers, apparently multiple times, whether he had really messed things up that badly with me. Nobody, she noted, was giving him the answer he wanted to hear. Then came the revelation. It arrived the way most devastating true things do. Not through some dramatic, tearful confession, but through a small, incredibly mundane accident that Julian himself created. He texted me in late April, asking if he could come by my apartment to collect a few random things he had left behind over the course of our relationship. A heavy winter jacket, a specialized phone charger, and a couple of expensive urban planning textbooks he needed for a certification exam. I agreed, mostly because I wanted the closure of a completely empty hall closet more than I wanted to avoid seeing his face. He came by on a rainy Tuesday evening. He was distracted, fidgety, and apologetic in a low-grade way that had become his default setting whenever he was around me. While he dug through the back of my hall closet looking for his jacket, he set his open laptop down on my kitchen island. It was still logged into his personal Gmail account. It was the exact same careless habit I had noticed and filed away months earlier, back before any of this nightmare had happened. Back when I had prayed I would never need to use it. I want to be completely honest about the moment itself. I didn't plan it, but when I saw that inbox sitting open on my counter, completely unattended for the length of time it took him to find one jacket in a closet he used to visit twice a week, something deep inside my brain made a decision faster than my conscience could talk me out of it. I walked over. I scrolled. There was a folder labeled with nothing more suspicious than a single capital letter, V. It was tucked neatly near the bottom of his inbox sidebar, right below his receipts folder. I clicked it. Inside that folder were drafts. Hundreds of them. They went back nearly 3 years. Most of them were unsent, but every single one of them was addressed to an email account I recognized instantly as Vanessa's. They were from a time long before she had ever moved to our city. Long before Julian and I had even met at that library table. Some of the drafts were incredibly short. Just a single paragraph, testing out casual, breezy sentences he never had the nerve to actually send. Some were massive, sprawling, detailed accounts of his daily life, his frustrations with our professors, his anxieties about his career, deep, intimate thoughts he apparently couldn't bring himself to share with anyone actually present in his life. All of it was addressed to a woman who, by his own admission, hadn't known he existed in high school. The most recent drafts were what broke me. They were dated from the early months of our relationship. October. November. There was one from late November, just 3 days after our first official date. In it, he wrote to Vanessa about a girl in my program who reminds me a little bit of you. He described me as smart and a little guarded. He never used my name. He explicitly called me someone to pass the time with until things make more sense. There was another draft from Valentine's Day. While I was sitting across from him at a romantic dinner eating pasta, he had gone to the bathroom and drafted an email to Vanessa, mentioning almost as an aside that he still checked her public Instagram every single day just to see what she was wearing. I sat down hard on my cold kitchen floor with his silver laptop resting heavy in my lap, and I read every single draft I could click on before he finished searching the closet. By the time he finally walked back into the kitchen, jacket in hand, I understood something horrifying that I hadn't fully grasped before. Vanessa moving to our city hadn't ignited some dormant, harmless nostalgia in him. It had been the physical answer to a years-long, ongoing, obsessive correspondence he had been having with a fantasy version of her the entire time we were together. He composed drafts, deleted them, and composed them again. He was never brave enough to press send, but he was never willing to stop writing. I hadn't been the woman he loved who occasionally got distracted by an old crush. I had been, in his own exact words, someone to pass the time with. The relationship I had poured my heart into for 9 months had, to him, been nothing more than a waiting room. I closed the laptop right before he walked in. I didn't say a single word about it that night. I let him leave with his jacket, his stupid charger, and his textbooks. I locked the door behind him, slid down the wood completely, and finally, for the first time since that happy hour months earlier, I sobbed. I didn't cry out of heartbreak, exactly, I cried out of something much closer to grief. Grief for the version of the relationship I genuinely believed I had been building. A relationship that, it turned out, had only ever existed on my side of the table. I took photos the next morning. Wait, no, I didn't take them the next morning. I had taken them while he was in the closet. My hands had been shaking so badly, but I had pulled out my phone and photographed the screen. I photographed every damning draft, making sure the dates and timestamps were clearly visible. I was careful, methodical. I documented it the way you document a crime scene, knowing you would need a jury to believe you without your word alone standing in for evidence. I debated for 2 agonizing days about what to do with the photos sitting in my camera roll. In the end, I decided the people who deserved to know were the exact people Julian had lied to directly, in real rooms, in front of real witnesses. I sent the 20 clearest screenshots to Carter with a short, clinical message explaining exactly what they were and when I had found them. I told him he could do with them whatever he thought was right. I didn't send anything to Vanessa myself. I left that choice entirely to Carter, because it was his relationship, his apartment, his roommate, and I had already done enough unraveling of Julian's life without positioning myself as the one still pulling the final threads. Carter called me that exact same night. His voice was incredibly tight, strained in a way I had never heard from him before. He told me he had shown the screenshots to Vanessa immediately. She went completely quiet for almost an hour, Carter told me over the phone. Then she asked to see the dates again. She started cross-referencing them against her own memory of when Julian had first started reaching out to her after she moved here. The excuses Julian had given Vanessa for randomly texting an old high school acquaintance. The casual coffee he had suggested for old time's sake, only 3 weeks after she had relocated. It all lined up perfectly with the timestamps on the unsent drafts. He had meticulously engineered every single casual encounter she had believed was just a happy coincidence. The confrontation happened 4 days later. It didn't happen in a private, quiet conversation. It happened at a dinner Carter had already planned weeks earlier, a small gathering at a nice Italian place to celebrate Vanessa's recent promotion at her consulting firm. It was a dinner Julian had been invited to before any of this came out, back when he was still technically Carter's roommate and an old friend of the group. Nobody uninvited him. I think, in hindsight, Carter wanted him there specifically so that what needed to be said could be said with an audience of peers. Julian arrived late. He was a little too cheerful, clearly completely unaware that the ground beneath his feet had already collapsed. He had barely pulled his chair out and sat down before Carter slid his phone directly across the white tablecloth. The screenshots were pulled up, the dates glaringly visible. Carter asked him flatly, in front of 4 other people from our old master's program, to explain exactly what they were looking at. I wasn't there, but Carter described it to me later. He said he watched Julian's face do the exact same thing it had done at the happy hour all those months earlier, that same careful, desperate recalculation. Except this time, there was absolutely no story left to reach for. He tried anyway. He stammered that the drafts were old, meaningless things he had never actually sent, practically begging the table to agree that the fact he never pressed send should count in his favor. Vanessa, sitting across the table with her celebratory pasta going cold in front of her, didn't yell. She looked at him with profound disgust and asked him directly whether he had started talking to her again because he wanted to reconnect as a friend, or because he had been composing obsessive emails to her for 3 years while sleeping next to someone else entirely. He didn't have an answer that survived contact with her question. He muttered something pathetic about not meaning to hurt anyone, about it not being that deep, about people reading way too much into private thoughts he had never acted on. Vanessa told him quietly that she felt deeply used. She said she had spent months feeling flattered by his attention without understanding it had never really been about her as a human being. It was only about a reflection of himself he wanted her to provide. Carter stood up and told Julian, in front of everyone, that it was time he found somewhere else to live. Immediately, when I heard about that dinner secondhand, it came with a kind of overwhelming relief that none of the earlier stories had carried. For the first time, Julian's true character wasn't a secret only I was carrying. It belonged now to a room full of people who had once liked him, who had once vouched for him, and who now understood exactly what he was capable of when he thought no one was checking his math. The consequences spiraled outward infinitely faster than I expected. That is the way consequences work once the truth finally has an audience instead of a single, gaslit witness. Julian moved out of Carter's apartment within 3 brutal weeks. It was a chaotic scramble made significantly harder by the fact that our city's rental market that spring was tight, wildly expensive, and by the fact that he no longer had a roommate willing to vouch for him to potential landlords. He ended up in a tiny, overpriced studio across town, a miserable 40-minute commute from his office. That was a detail I only knew because our mutual friend at his firm mentioned it unprompted. The way people mention things when they want you to know someone's life has gotten significantly worse. There was a vicious, petty security deposit dispute over the apartment he had shared with Carter. It was an ugly little fight about $700 and some damage to a bedroom wall that Julian insisted predated his tenancy, and Carter insisted absolutely did not. It dragged out over a month of furious text exchanges. It was the kind of dispute that has absolutely nothing to do with the money and everything to do with 2 people who used to be best friends now looking for any excuse to punish each other. Carter eventually just let it go, less because he changed his mind about the wall, and more because he didn't want one more month of his life organized around Julian's existence. Family sides got chosen incredibly fast. 2. Julian's mother, Diane, the woman I had spoken to over video calls and genuinely adored, texted me directly about 6 weeks after everything exploded. I hadn't expected to hear from her at all, let alone in the devastated tone she used. She said she had heard a highly sanitized, self-serving version of events from Julian, and that it hadn't sat right with her. So, she had called Carter's mother, an old family friend, and gotten the full, unvarnished picture. Diane apologized to me on her son's behalf in a long message that was more honest about his character flaws than anything he himself had ever managed to say. She told me she loved him, but she wasn't proud of him, and she hoped I was doing all right. I didn't expect to cry reading a text from my ex-boyfriend's mother, but I did. I sat on my kitchen floor in almost the exact spot where I had read his drafts, and I wept. Julian's desperation showed up in smaller, stranger moves over the following weeks. He reached out to 2 of my closest friends from the program, people he barely knew, begging them to put in a good word with me. He wanted them to explain that he wasn't a monster, just a guy who made mistakes under pressure. Both of them told me about the messages immediately, and both of them, at my request, simply blocked his number. There were logistical nightmares that took up more of my mental energy that spring than the actual heartbreak. There was a joint rock climbing gym membership we had signed up for back in January. It was a strict 6-month contract that charged a ridiculous $300 cancellation fee if you tried to break it early as an individual rather than as a couple. I spent an infuriating 45 minutes on the phone with their billing department, listening to terrible hold music, explaining my messy breakup to a completely apathetic customer service rep before they finally agreed to waive the fee. Then there was the wedding. A mutual friend from undergrad, Emma, was getting married in June. Julian and I had put down a joint $500 deposit on a shared Airbnb for the weekend, back when splitting costs felt romantic instead of administrative. Untangling that deposit took 4 separate emails to the host, a refund policy that only gave me half my money back, and an incredibly awkward conversation with Emma, who had to rearrange the entire reception seating chart so Julian and I wouldn't be at adjacent tables. I ended up eating the cost of the lost $250. It was a small, specific financial loss that somehow felt more infuriating in the moment than the emotional betrayal, because it kept the wreckage present in my life in the form of a credit card statement. I want to talk about the quiet grief. 2. Because I think Reddit stories like this one always skip past the pain in favor of the adrenaline rush of watching someone get destroyed. That isn't honest. There was a night in late May, alone in my apartment, when I found an old voice memo on my phone. It was a recording of Julian and I cooking dinner, and I was laughing hysterically at something he had said. I played it once, and I let myself miss him. Not the man who called me a stranger. The other one. The one who brought the matcha lattes. I grieved the loss of the man I thought I was marrying. That grief didn't cancel out the anger or the grim satisfaction of his downfall, but it existed right alongside it. By August, our massive friend group had quietly, permanently fractured. Julian kept in touch with a shrinking handful of co-workers and one or two old friends who hadn't been in the room for any of the worst of it. Everyone else simply stopped inviting him to things. Nobody organized a formal boycott. It just happened the way social gravity happens. People naturally drifted toward the version of events that matched what they had actually witnessed with their own eyes. 6 months after the confrontation dinner, our old master's cohort organized a massive holiday gathering at a brewery downtown. I went, because I no longer organized my life around avoiding Julian. Julian walked in with someone new on his arm, a woman from outside our program entirely. I felt something when I saw them, but it wasn't jealousy or panic. It was just a profound, unremarkable nothing. 2 hours into the night, Carter stood up, clinking his glass. He pulled Vanessa up next to him, reached into his pocket, and proposed right there in front of everyone. The entire room erupted. People were screaming, chairs were scraping, phones were raised to record. I looked across the room at Julian. He went completely, terrifyingly still. His face did that exact same careful recalculation I had watched him do at the happy hour. Except this time, there was no fantasy left for him to retreat into. No old crush to chase, no room full of people willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. He left before the toasts even started. I watched him walk out the door, into the freezing snow, completely alone. People ask me sometimes if I regret what I did. If planting that one sentence with Carter makes me a manipulator. I've thought about it a lot. Here is what I know. I didn't create anything that wasn't already there. I didn't fabricate his obsession. I didn't write those hundreds of drafts. I just stopped protecting him from the natural consequences of his own choices. I just stopped being the only person holding his ugly secrets. Julian spent a decade writing drafts to a fantasy he never had the courage to send. I spent 9 months learning that the truth, once you finally let it out of your hands, doesn't need much help finding its way to exactly where it belongs. I broke up with my girlfriend because she wanted to stay a virgin. Now she wants to get back together but had sex with someone else during our breakup. I, a 23-year-old male, met my ex-girlfriend, a 21-year-old female, 3 years ago. We lived on campus at university in different halls of residence. After a few months, we got together and for the most part had a very happy relationship. There was always one issue though. My ex grew up in a very religious home. Her father is a pastor. She has been open with her family that she does not share their faith. They weren't happy about it but accepted that she has to make her own choices on that. Nevertheless, I think some of that religious upbringing was still in her mind. I grew up in a different religion but was never very serious about it and am no longer religious. Our relationship was pretty normal except that she told me very early that she was a virgin and wanted to stay that way until she was married. It wasn't for religious reasons. As I mentioned, she isn't religious. But she was very focused on not disappointing her dad. We did other sexual things, just not intercourse. I never had much luck with girls growing up and going into the relationship I was a virgin. And I still am, at least if you classify being a virgin as never having had intercourse. Anyway, I was becoming more resentful of the fact that everyone I know was having normal sexual relationships and we weren't. I couldn't understand why she didn't want to have a full sexual relationship, though of course I never pressured her about it. I felt that while I was at university, and pretty broke, getting married was something for the future. Last year, I was in my last year of university and she was working in her first professional job. Her degree was shorter than mine, so she finished university first despite being younger than me. She was talking a lot about all these successful guys she met at work, which did make me feel lesser as I was still a broke university student. Coupled with her still not wanting a full sexual relationship, it did make me feel more resentful. We had some arguments about it and after a while I felt that I should end the relationship as we wanted different things and our lives were on different paths. It was awful. She was crying a lot and I felt terrible afterwards. Anyway, it has been nearly 6 months since we broke up. We haven't been in touch at all for most of that time. I have not been involved with anyone else in that time, as I was 100% focused on finishing my degree. I have finally finished university and am about to start my first professional job. She recently got in touch again and asked to meet up. I was hesitant but decided we had so much good history that I should hear her out. She told me she's been missing me terribly these past 6 months. That she thinks she wants to get back together and is open to having a sexual relationship now. I asked her why now. What changed? And she looked uncomfortable. After a little prying, she said she had a short-term fling with one of the older guys at work while we were broken up. Which of course was fine as she wasn't my girlfriend anymore. Anyway, she said he persisted with her until she started having sex with him. She ended it with him recently. She was clear that it was consensual, but that the guy was very persistent with pursuing sex with her. I was gutted. I couldn't understand why she'd make me wait all those years, but was fine doing it with some new guy she'd only been seeing a short time. I asked if the reason she was open to having a sexual relationship now is because she wasn't a virgin anymore. She said yes. I asked her to give me some space to process all this. I'm conflicted and would love some advice on this. I have missed her a lot and still have strong feelings for her. But at the same time it feels like I was strung along for years. It's hard to put my finger on why I don't want to take her back. Everything logically makes sense for us to get back together. I'd even get to finally have a sexual relationship with her. But I feel awful about this whole thing and don't want to ignore those feelings. Some of the comments are being very harsh on my ex. And I guess that's not surprising. You don't know her. She's not some evil manipulative villain. At all. I would never have been with anyone like that. She's still the funny, smart, charming, beautiful girl I always knew. Any guy would be lucky to have her. I would be too if I could handle the baggage here, but I'm thinking I probably can't and a clean break is the way to go. Though she may regret the relationship with the other man, it's not my business as she was a single woman and we broke up. I wasn't ever expecting to hear from her again really. This whole situation is very surprising to me. I'm feeling hurt because I guess this is a solid blow to my ego. That I feel like the lesser man here. I can own that, and that's something for me to work on. Ultimately I have some hang-ups about sex from this relationship that I need to deal with. A few people have suggested I could benefit from therapy. I'm going to look into that. I think I need help to process all these emotions from this situation. Relevant comments. I would ask her why she was willing to sleep with this guy after such a short relationship, but after 3 years she was not willing to sleep with you. OP's reply, I think this is the right question. Because I don't know why, she didn't say. All she said was that the guy was persistent. I'm torn about whether to simply text her that I don't want to rekindle things and leave it all in the past. Or whether I should ask more questions about what happened. Because this hurts. I don't know if I'm ready to get details of her relationship with the other guy. Sometimes I just feel like I'm stunted in some way. A few comments have said I'm immature and they're probably right. I know I'm the one who ended the relationship and that she's entitled to do what she wants with anyone else. Still doesn't make it hurt any less. And maybe it's just best to say goodbye and leave all this in the past. Update 1. Hello again. I appreciate people taking the time to comment on my last post. The response was a lot more than I expected with over 2,000 comments. I'm amazed so many people wanted to comment about my situation. Thank you. Warning, this post is long. I have kept a daily journal since I was 16. A lot of what follows is dumped from my journal. Yes, I know I'm not concise. I'm going to refer to my ex as Ellie, not her real name. I'd like to write a bit about the comments because so many people took the time to provide their thoughts and I appreciate that. The majority of comments were some variation of move on. A clean break. A strong recommendation with a lot to recommend it. A minority said give her a chance and see how it goes. Plenty calling me an arsehole for ending it because I wanted sex in our relationship, or for being obsessed with her virginity. That I dumped her because she wouldn't put out. And quite a few saying my breaking up with her made her feel like sex is necessary to keep a guy and that it drove her heartbroken into the next guy's bed. There were a few she's pregnant comments. Not that I know of, it's not impossible, but if that happens it won't be anything to do with me. The dude's saying I should fuck her and leave her, or worse, seriously some of you guys need a hug or a psychologist. No, I would never use her like that, no matter our past. Ellie and I were a loving couple for years. That counts for something even after we broke up. Feeling hurt doesn't justify using her, or anyone else for that matter. As for comments that I have some hang up about taking her virginity. My issue when together was that we weren't having sex in our relationship, not whether she was a virgin or not. Her being a virgin was her reason for being abstinent, but wasn't directly an issue either way to me. If she hadn't been a virgin and wanted to be abstinent I would have been in the same situation. Bear in mind, for 3 years Ellie had everything she wanted from our relationship. Boyfriend, love, affection, loyalty, support, and a guy who respected her wishes to be abstinent. While she got 100% of what she wanted, for me there was a big element missing. And there was no way to reconcile that. Either we were having sex or not having it. Sex requires both to say yes, and that wasn't going to happen. With hindsight, I should have ended the relationship early on, when Ellie first told me she wanted to not have sex until marriage. When we got together, I was a naive 19-year-old who had never had a girlfriend before, so I kind of went along with things because I really liked her and got along with her so well. I fell in love with her and then kind of felt stuck in a relationship that wasn't what I wanted. I've learned from this and won't make that mistake in the future. I want to make active, not passive choices in future relationships. To not just go along with things because that's what the other person wants. Our views about sex in our relationship were not compatible, so I ended the relationship rather than waiting any longer hoping she'd change her mind. It was scary to take that step and I put it off for way too long, because I didn't want to hurt her. But I couldn't stay in the relationship just for her. I had to also consider myself too. My mistake was waiting so long to get to that point. I regret that, as it caused her more hurt than if I'd ended it early on. Many of you say that sex just isn't that important. But for me it is, at least as part of a relationship. You can disagree. That's fine. Some people are fine being in no-sex relationships. No judgment from me, but that's not what I want. Some people took issue with me saying I felt she strung me along. On reflection, that's fair. Ellie was clear to me about wanting to not have sex until marriage. I foolishly stayed way too long hoping she'd change her mind one day. She didn't. That was my mistake. I strung myself along, really. She never led me on in any way. It hurt to learn that she had sex with the next guy relatively quickly after I waited so long. But she is my ex, so that is not my business anymore. She is allowed to change her mind. She can have sex, or not, with whoever she chooses. I don't get a say in that. My hurt is an emotional response, not a logical one. Logically, I see she did nothing wrong by me. I'll get over it. It's just my bruised ego if I'm honest with myself. Feeling I'm somehow a lesser man because she took that step with the next guy. I know objectively that isn't true, but I sure feel it. I was not a perfect boyfriend and I have made mistakes. I have learned from them. I don't regret breaking up with Ellie and still think it was the right decision for me. Enough background. A few things have happened. Last weekend was the Australia Day long weekend. I was on a camping trip, in the Grampians for any Aussies reading. It was so nice to be in nature, to do some bushwalks with friends and decompress. It felt good to talk about the Ellie situation with my mates around the campfire. Most of them knew Ellie pretty well from our years together and they had a range of views, just like the commenters on my post. And I got the usual good-natured shit about still being a virgin. I learned there's an expensive bottle of scotch they bought a while ago that's going to have its seal cracked when mine is. Bastards, lol. One great question a friend asked was whether I would have ever decided to reach out and take Ellie back if she never reached out to me first. The answer is no. It was so obvious to me. That cut through a lot of the confusion for me. I was being too passive in this situation, and needed to do what I wanted. Not just react to what Ellie wanted. By the time I was on the way home, I had decided to not get back together with her. But that was moot. When I was driving home and got a mobile signal again, no mobile network where we had camped, the network delivered a bunch of messages from Ellie all at once. She said she was wrong to ask me to get back together and that she's back with Tim now. She also texted that the thing with Tim is more serious than she told me when she last met with me. She apologized for misleading me about her and Tim's relationship. If you remember, she called it a fling before. She asked if we could meet to talk about it. I was not happy, so I just texted back no. Not very mature of me, but I wasn't in the mood to hear more about all this. And I was surprised and pissed off that she lied to me. That seemed very out of character for her. She tried calling me, but I didn't want to answer. She sent another text saying, "Tim and I had a fight. I shouldn't have come to you. And finally, I'm sorry. When I got home I was an idiot and let my curiosity get the better of me. I looked up Tim online. His real given name is uncommon, so it wasn't hard to find. Found him on LinkedIn, which gave me his full name. Ellie is one of his connections and he works at the same firm, so I was confident it's him. He's a director at their firm, one level below partner. He also has pics on Insta. Lots of posts about his adventures around the world at various events and exotic places, as well as shots with an expensive-looking car. A few photos of him with Ellie with their arms around each other in Singapore in November. I guess that confirms it was serious. He wouldn't have public pics with her for a casual fling. All that just made me feel bad. No good comes from comparing myself to my ex-successful boyfriend. Ellie is not my girlfriend and I'm not in competition with Tim. So I won't do that again. My ego's bruised enough already. I have been living a very frugal life my whole time at university, aka poor as fuck, So I know I can feel inferior when I see people with wealth. That's another problem for me, problem to sort out. Anyway, all that was on Sunday evening. On Tuesday evening, Ellie knocked at my door. She said that she knew I didn't want to talk to her, but she felt bad about everything and hoped I would let her explain herself, clear the air, then I'd never see her again if that's what I wanted. I let her in. I was not happy with recent events but figured I might at least get a clearer idea of what's going on. It was a long, heavy conversation over 4 hours, but here's the gist as I remember it. When we broke up, she was devastated. She said it took a couple of months before she started to feel a bit better. She missed me constantly and wanted to see me the whole time, but when I ended it we agreed to keep apart and heal. In September, she met Tim at work. He manages a different team, she doesn't work for him. She said he was very charming and attractive and showed almost immediate interest in her. They got to know each other and he asked her out. She was worried it was a rebound but felt so much better getting his attention that she went along with it. After dating for a while she developed feelings for him and that later led to a sexual relationship. It wasn't a fling and she dated him for a while beforehand. I asked about whether he had pressured her into sex, last time said he was very persistent. She said she was trying to not upset me. She thought if she gave the impression she was reluctant to have sex with Tim that I wouldn't think as badly of her. So it was a story to try and spare my feelings. I told her it just made me worried she had been assaulted. She looked shocked at that and said no way, she was actually the one who initiated their sexual relationship. I said although I don't like that she lied to me, I can understand why. I don't think she did anything wrong changing her mind about abstinence. Yes, I was hurt when she told me she was having sex, but I have no right to judge her for anything. She's a single adult and it's her life. I don't think badly of her. She burst into tears and said something like, "I thought you must hate me now." I assured her that I didn't. She said she was sad it didn't work for us, but that she never would have dropped her virginity commitment if we had not broken up. After we broke up, she decided that it was a commitment she made to her dad when she was still a kid and it was messing with the life she wants now. So by the time she and Tim got into their relationship, she had already decided she was ready for sex with the right person. I asked about her dad and she just said he doesn't need to know. I asked about why she asked to get back together. Tim is older, she told me he's 32, and has been at the firm 10 years. One day at work, one of the women made a snarky comment to Ellie about being another one of Tim's girls. She did some digging and it turns out Tim has a history. He has dated a long list of women from work, several of them were young graduate employees just like Ellie. The rumor around the office is that Ellie is just the next girl to get used by him. She was horrified. She accused him of using her. They argued and she told him it was over. Soon after that she came to me. She felt as if we might be able to rekindle things now that she was open to a sexual relationship. But my hesitation and time to calm down made her realize that was a mistake. Over the weekend, Tim asked her to work things out. She decided to give it a chance. She tried to call me but they went to voicemail. I was camping, so she sent those messages instead. So I guess that's settled. I don't want her back and she's in a relationship so she doesn't want me back either. We chatted a bit about how our families are going. She congratulated me on finally finishing university. She asked if I'd been seeing anyone and when I told her I'd been studying hard and working a lot since exams, retail job, with no time for girls, she laughed and said I'm still a big nerd. She hoped we could be friendly if we ever see each other. But she wants to keep out of contact out of respect for her relationship with Tim. She wants to give it a real chance of working. Which is fair enough. She gave me a hug, said thank you for understanding and left. So there you have it. Ellie involved me in her relationship drama. I would have preferred she hadn't, but at least it's sorted now. I'm glad I paid attention to my feelings and took time out to consider things, as it could have been very messy if I had taken her back. Trusting my gut has been the biggest lesson for me in all this. I still care for her despite recent events. It seems like she is dealing with a lot of complicated things between her new relationship and work gossip. I wish her well and hope she will be happy, whether it's with Tim or not. She was my first love and I expect I'll always have warm memories of her. But I am clear now that I don't want her back. She is my past and I want to look forward. Well, this has become an essay. Tutors at university always told me I was too waffly in my writing. Well, fuck those guys, I'm not a student anymore. I can now focus on launching my new career with no distractions. I've worked so hard for so long to get here. My new job starts on Monday. It's going to be so great building actual real experience in my new profession, not just endless theory. I'll be earning much better money, no more student poverty. And I've got graduation in May to look forward to as well. I'm open to finding someone new, but that is way down my priority list. I'm not going to actively pursue that anytime soon. OP on Ellie changing. I came to terms with our relationship months ago. When she came back to me, it stirred up some old feelings, because we'd been a couple so long. But thinking about it now, that was more of an echo of those memories than real feelings. All of this drama was Ellie's doing. I would have preferred she never involved me so I could have been blissfully ignorant of her romantic life. I'd prefer to not know about her worldly, rich boyfriend. Or their sex life. She's definitely changed. The Ellie I remember was scrupulous and honest to a fault. The Ellie I have dealt with recently wasn't like that so much. I think that's why her lying to me pissed me off so much. It wasn't just lying. It was how out of character it seemed. But people change. She's in the business world now, and people there live by different standards to the religious family she grew up in. Anyway, I have cut myself out of her life. So anything that happens with her is hers to deal with. If she comes back to me, I'll remind her we agreed to stay apart and leave it there. I am not looking for another relationship right now. So no Tinder for me. And no, I am not looking for casual sex either. I'm a virgin, but I want a meaningful connection, not just sex. As I said in the post, I'm open to something if the right woman came along. But I'm not actively seeking it. That might change after a while, but right now I want to keep focused on my new career. OP on having closure. A lot of the comments here act like that final meeting was all for her benefit. Sure, she got some kind of relief or closure out of it, but it was also good for me. Seeing who she is becoming just made is 100% no doubt in my mind that we wouldn't ever make sense. She has changed a lot in the last year, starting when we were still together and she had started her job. Random phrases like, work hard, play hard, being generally less kind and more dismissive of others. Clearly she was being influenced by those around her, but it was her choice to take on those behaviors. I love the old Ellie, but I'm not sure I even like the current one much. Anyway, I didn't feel like she intruded. I felt like I got a nice neat ending to the whole thing and can get on with my life with a clear conscience. But we're clear now that it's over forever and I have her promise that she will stay out of contact. If she ever does try to come back, I can remind her of her own promise and close the door. Update 2. If you recall from my previous posts, my ex Ellie and I mutually agreed to be no contact after some drama on her part. At the urging of Redditors, I also blocked her to help maintain no contact. I've been working since February as a graduate engineer and it's been everything I hoped it would be. I'm meeting amazing smart people, learning so much every day, and am finally earning a salary after years of being a broke student. Having a little money in the bank and being able to afford to do things like eating out is such a nice change. When I finished university in November, I moved in with my brother temporarily. He'd just broken up with his ex and needed help with his rent. That's where I was living when Ellie last came to see me. He found a new housemate, and since his place was on the wrong side of the CBD for my job, I moved into a shared house in the southeast of Melbourne. The place is a bit run down, but the rent is reasonable, by insane Melbourne standards, and there are lots of pubs, bars and restaurants nearby. The location and my housemates have been great. I'm seeing someone. I'll call her Olivia, not her real name. She's the sister of one of my housemates. We met when my housemates and I had a BBQ and she dropped by. We got talking and were still talking hours later until everyone else had left. Her brother told us to STFU so he could get some sleep, haha. I asked her out that week and we've been close since. My housemate, her brother, has been making fun of us ever since, including more than a few crude jokes when she stays over. We agreed to be exclusive 6 weeks ago, so it's still quite new. She's so cool, and smart, and gorgeous. The chemistry was instant and intense from the moment we met. We just clicked so well. It's such a great time when we're together. Olivia is an accountant at a big firm. One of Olivia's workmates was having a party last month. She asked me to come to meet some of her work friends. We went inside and Olivia introduced me to the woman who hosted the party, her workmate Jess. There would have been maybe 40, 50 people there. I didn't know anyone but Olivia. At one point I offered to grab more drinks. The kitchen was in a separate room. As I was getting them, a guy asked me to pass him a beer from the fridge. I introduced myself and he said, "Hi, I'm Tim." We chatted a couple of minutes about our jobs and how we know Jess, then I just said nice to meet you and returned to the group. I didn't recognize his face as I'd never met him before, but it was definitely Ellie's Tim, his job and firm lineup. And he looked in his 30s, a bit older than most people at the party. Neither of us mentioned Ellie when we were talking. Later on I asked Jess how she knew Tim. She said she used to work at the same firm as Tim, also where Ellie works, but she moved to another employer, where Olivia works. Despite living in a city of 5 million, It's still a small world. On the tram ride home I must have been quiet because Olivia asked what was on my mind. I said that the Tim guy at the party was, or maybe still is, my ex's boyfriend. I said I didn't think he knew who I was, or if he did, he didn't say anything. That prompted me to share some history about me and Ellie. Olivia was wide-eyed and said, "You never told me you were a virgin." Then she laughed and said, "Well, we took care of that." She asked if I had any feelings for Ellie, and I truthfully said no. I dealt with all that months ago. More recently, there was a formal charity dinner that Olivia was asked to support. Her employer was a sponsor of the event. She was keen to show me off. We were at a table with a bunch of her work colleagues. Nice people. One of her work friends was so excited to meet me, and Olivia can't stop talking about you. That made me feel really good. After dinner a few of us were chatting and I got a tap on the shoulder. I turned around and to my surprise it was Ellie. Tim was with her. It was so weird to see her again. Tim said he remembered meeting me at that party but never made the connection to Ellie until just now. She must have told him about me. Ellie looked very different. She had lost a lot of weight and was very slim. The tight red dress she was wearing made that obvious. Her dad would not approve. Not that she was ever overweight, but I'd never seen her that thin before. She was immaculately made up with what looked to my ignorant eye like expensive jewelry. She'd changed her hair too, now blonde instead of her natural auburn. She looked like a sleek rich girl, not the poor pastor's daughter I remember. Don't get me wrong, she looked amazing, but she looked like a different person. I know it was a formal event so we were all dressed nicely, but this was a major transformation. Despite her glam looks, when I saw her I didn't feel anything for her. Just nothing. Ellie said she was so glad to see me and she had some news, holding out her hand to show a diamond engagement ring. I know nothing about diamonds but it looked pretty big and expensive to me. I offered my congratulations to them both. Just then Olivia walked back over. I introduced her to Ellie and Tim. Olivia put her arm around me and Ellie's smile seemed to kind of freeze. I didn't really know what else to say, so I just said nice to see you again and wished them all the best for the wedding. Tim walked off and Ellie just sort of stood there a moment. It was awkward. Later on as we were leaving, Ellie was staring at us as we walked out. Olivia said later that, "I think she still has a thing for you." I said it doesn't matter. Anyway, cut to a few days ago. My brother messaged me saying Ellie stopped by looking for me. Yes, Reddit, you were right. He knew to not share my new address with her, so all he said was I'd moved out. Next day I received an email from an address I hadn't seen before. It was Ellie. No acknowledgement that she was breaking our agreement to be no contact. No mention she stopped by my old place. It said, "It was so great to see you again. I've missed you, and, that girl you were with is pretty, how serious is it?" And telling me she and Tim have big plans for their wedding next year and she hopes I can come. I was annoyed because she is trying to make her life my business. Again. Despite promising no contact. Even going to the trouble to make a new email address to get around me blocking her. I showed Olivia the email and she rolled her eyes and asked me to think about why my ex would send me that. Why indeed? Olivia is great at cutting through bullshit and reads people way better than I do. Ellie can't have me back. I'm in a relationship now plus she's engaged, and it's not like I would go to their wedding. Who goes to their ex's wedding? It wouldn't be right. I don't know why she's trying to contact me, but I can guess that she wants to use me for emotional support again. Or maybe things are rocky with Tim, who knows? Whatever she wants, it's not happening. She has family and friends, she can talk to them. I deleted the email and blocked the address without replying. Ellie promised she'd keep out of contact and just couldn't help herself. I still intend to keep my word of no contact, even if she doesn't. I've also set up a filter to send any email containing her name to the bin. Olivia and I had a talk after that. I asked if she was concerned about the Ellie thing but she said no, she's not worried, she didn't get serial killer vibes from Ellie. I'm glad none of this has put her off me. So nothing too dramatic but it does prove you guys were right, Ellie couldn't not contact me despite promising to do so. I was able to sidestep her much more easily than last time. Ultimately this is a good news story. Life is so great right now. I've got a cool new girlfriend, a fun place to live and a new career I love. It has been easy to leave Ellie behind. I have 2 weeks to escape my controlling and abusive husband before he returns from a business trip. Throwaway account as my husband and in-laws are following my main. I, 29F, have been married to my husband, 30M, who I'll call Alex. Alex and I met in college during our freshman year. We started off as just friends and got married 7 months ago. I've gotten along with his family, but we aren't super close, but we're friendly enough. The problem is that Alex has begun to make me incredibly uncomfortable. Firstly, he's begun to ask me who I'm meeting with, where, what we plan on doing, how long every single time I leave the house without him. At first I just thought he was being protective and a good partner just in case something happened, but then he started checking my phone after the visits, vetting and researching each of my friends as well. He also has been pursuing me to link my bank account to his, as he's in charge of the finances when he was perfectly fine with keeping them separate before. We fight about it almost every day. Finally, yesterday, when he was preparing to go on a work trip for 2 weeks in California, he demanded I wear a tracker so he could keep an eye on me while he's gone. I can't do this anymore. I feel like I'm suffocating, and his family, who I've spoken to about his worrying behavior, just said he's being careful and protective as a good husband should. I need to gather my things together and find a way to be gone before he gets home without tipping him off. He's always threatened that if he ever found me cheating on him, he'd turn in divorce papers the same day. He keeps a filled-out copy on his desk. I'm going to submit those the day I leave, but there's so much to do. Bergen, finding a new place to live, seeing if my job has any transfers available, packing and moving in 2 weeks. His return flight is on May 11th, so I need to move quickly. I'm posting here because I don't have any close family, and I can't risk dragging my friends into this as we share the same friends. I just needed a place to vent and ask if anyone has any advice on the easiest and safest way to do this. Edit. Oh my god, you guys are amazing. I never even thought to not use his divorce papers. I'll check for cameras before I start any packing or prepping. I may also shred his divorce papers just in case and look into getting a lawyer for myself. I'm in a no-fault divorce state, that much I remember, which will help. I'll update again when I know more. The tracker he wants me to use is a small clip to put on the belt or waistband. I'll wear it unless I'm going or doing something related to me leaving. No pets yet, thankfully. Update 1. So I've gotten a lot of support and helpful advice along with questions I thought I should clarify before I proceed with the update. Some asked why I'd be hiding things from Alex regarding going out and who I'm meeting with. I don't, and I have nothing to hide. However, when he begins to double-check everything I tell him with the other people there, right down to each person I talk to and what I said. Did I send any text messages? Did I order food? How much did I eat? That's when it started to feel like I was slowly being pushed into a corner. It didn't start that bad, but gradually grew worse over time. All of the Reddit subs my in-laws' families are part of are related gardening and DIY, so I highly doubt they'll see this. If so, by the time they do, I'll hopefully be gone. I talked about my job and explained things to my manager. And they promised to look into openings in other states to see if they could get me into one. They'll have an update on that in 3 days. I trust that my bank account is secured, considering he's tried to get into it before and failed. I found one camera in the kitchen, another in the living room, and one in our bedroom. As such, I've left them in place for now and done all other planning, either in the bathroom pretending I'm taking a bath. I'm honestly staying away from the domestic violence services as my sister-in-law is unfortunately higher up in those, considering she volunteers there, and I have a feeling if I did show up there, they would know in a heartbeat. I can't look for apartments until I get the update from my work, but either or I'm still gonna be leaving the state. The day before I do, I will be changing my number carrier and wiping my laptop and all of his electronics before I do. I've met with 2 lawyers so far and had them look over the paperwork. My husband had prepared and both said that it did have some clauses in it. That could have caused me some trouble down the line. What alarmed all of us was the fact that several of those clauses dealt with future children, and not as a hypothetical. Like several here suggested, I have a feeling he fully intended on getting me pregnant to keep me trapped and tied to him. There are 3 other locations my job could send me to, and I have. As a precaution, I began looking into all 3 cities and housing in the areas. Just in case one of those, this is the one they send me to. Even if they don't have an opening that they can push me into, then I will just have to quit, move and figure things out on my own. I have enough money to live and survive for a few months until I can pick up another job. Unfortunately, all of our friends are mutuals and would likely be unaware of the consequences of saying or sharing anything I do or say with my husband. I don't have any surviving close family, and obviously my in-laws are not a good resource to rely on. I am on my own, unfortunately, other than the wonderful bonds I've begun to make here. I will update again if I get more information or something else happens. Otherwise, all updates when my work gets back to me. I do plan on leaving before he returns though. Just to make sure that I'm not anywhere near here at that time. Update 2. Good news. My work has an opening I qualify for that will not only shift me across the country, but also comes with a salary increase as well. I've started telling my in-laws and friends that I'm planning a surprise outing for when my husband gets back for just the two of us. This way, people don't give me odd looks if they see me out and about. I've even gone as far as asking Mill to show me his favorite recipes. Meanwhile, I've found a moving company that, while small, is willing to work in a storm. The reason is in 5 days, we're supposed to get hit with a large storm front. I plan to shut off the breaker and say we lost power if he asks, just as several people here suggested, and even send him a short clip of the storm. I will have all of my stuff moved that afternoon, and I will be flying out once the weather has cleared enough to do so. I have a lawyer who will push my divorce through, and I've filled out the necessary paperwork so that I don't have to be here for it. I'm not suing for assets or alimony, and I've shredded his divorce papers as well. I've set up a cheap phone plan through Cricket until this is all said and done, at which point I will find a new carrier, number and phone. This one is being wiped and left behind. My laptop is provided by my work, and the IT department inspected it thoroughly and it was clean, thankfully. No other electronics aside from my laptop and new phone will be coming with me. If Alex needs to talk to me, he can do it through my lawyer. Not sure if anything else will happen. My fingers are crossed that he doesn't think anything's amiss until after I leave, and I'm not turning the breaker back on when I do. He can when he gets home. My work is covering the plane ticket, so that at least is one expense I don't have to finagle in. Update 3. It's been a busy week, but I've gotten so much done. Firstly, I am now out of the house and am currently in a hotel while I look for an apartment. It's a big city, bustling with people no matter where you look. We had a pretty bad storm system hit back home that actually lasted 2 days. High winds, thunder, lightning, and even hail everywhere. I didn't take much from the house: my documents, clothes, and important sentimental items. I left all of the furniture and electronics behind. I cleaned the house top to bottom and took pictures on my phone so he couldn't claim I damaged anything when I left. My lawyer has already started divorce proceedings, and my husband will be served on the 8th. His plane is due to land early in the morning, and the sheriff will be there at the house waiting for him. He is very much about public appearances and reputation. My lawyer will be calling him as well to inform him that I am more than willing to air out everything to the public about his actions if it means securing my freedom from him. I will go to court as long as I must to get this pushed through. I haven't told our friends or his in-laws yet. I will do that while he is on the flight to prevent him from getting wind of it before he's handed the divorce papers. I will be calling around and explaining why we're getting divorced, to try and prevent him from twisting this into somehow being my fault. I don't want him trying to claim I had an affair or something, so I want to get the truth out before he can twist this. I'm doing okay. I'm tired, but yet I feel almost jittery and off-kilter. I keep looking over my shoulder and monitoring what I say even when I don't really need to anymore. Hopefully that will fade soon. My work is covering the cost of the hotel, and I'm working on getting my other things in order. I also need to find a new GP as I want to get a full test just to make sure everything is okay. I don't know when my next update will be, probably when the divorce papers are filed or if we have to go to court to push them through. I will try to keep my head up, but it feels like I'm in a whirlwind or something with so many things to do and think about. I kinda thought it would be easier once I got out of the house, but while the fear is smaller, somehow the number of tasks only seems to have grown. Update 4. Firstly, I'm working on getting an apartment still and have applications in at 3 different places and will hopefully hear back from them soon. I'm still going into work here at the new location, so I don't have to worry about burning through my emergency savings completely. I've gotten a lot of emails from Alex, his family, and our old friend group asking question after question. I have only sent one return email to Alex, explaining that I don't believe we are truly compatible, and it is best we separate now. That his treatment of me when I'd done nothing to deserve as such was just as much of a deal breaker as cheating was for him. I ended the email with the statement that I would not be contacting him further and anything else he needed to pass on to me or vice versa would be done through my lawyer. For his family and friends, I just typed up one email outlining everything that had happened and why I left. I told them I wished them no ill will, but that such treatment of his wife and partner was not acceptable. That should Alex get remarried in the future, I wish they would help support both partners and not just Alex. Alex, from what my lawyer told me, was livid when he was served. The sheriff actually ended up booking him for assault on an officer and menacing due to the threats he was shouting. His father bailed him out in a few hours, but with the testimony of the sheriff, my lawyer believes I have a very good chance at getting a restraining order. Alex, upon returning to the house, apparently lost his temper again, breaking the dining table into pieces as well as the TV, and putting several holes in the walls. At least that's what one of the emails from one of our friends reported as Alex called him to help him clean up the mess. My lawyer already has pictures of the house I took, with timestamps as evidence nothing had been damaged by me. My friend reported that Alex tried to claim I'd been the one to trash the house, but the holes in the wall were at head height. Alex is 6'3". And I'm 5'4", so he knew that was false. Either way, taking the pictures definitely will help me, so again, thank you everyone here for the advice, because I never would have thought of that on my own. My work won't share details of where I am, as I do work with some higher-end clientele who value security, and that information won't be gossiped about, and no, I'm not some stripper or escort. I deal with contracts, notary and business management. As such, even if Alex tried to use my work to find me, he wouldn't succeed. Update 5. It's been a little bit, and I thought I'd answer some questions before giving my update. It may be a while after this until things change. Firstly, no, I didn't bring my car. The public transport here is good enough to use without needing one. I have secured an apartment, and the building has good security. You need a key card to enter, and there is a security guard at a desk right by the entrance to the building. As part of my contract, I gave them a photo of Alex and his family so that even in the off chance they do find me, they won't be let in. The responses I got from the emails varied. His family said I was overreacting, and that I owe Alex an apology for the problems this has caused him. The pending criminal charges puts him at risk of losing his job if he's convicted. Alex sent a long email, apologizing and pleading for me to come home. He said he was worried for me, that he is willing to go to therapy if it will appease me. He wants us to remain together, and he didn't think leaving was an appropriate response to his genuine concern and worry for my health and safety. The friends gave somewhat lacking replies, saying that they didn't think Alex was ever going to hurt me and that I shouldn't be letting my imagination run away wild. As much as I want to say I was surprised by the lack of support, I'm honestly not. He intends to fight the divorce. I am letting my lawyer handle it, and I am also pursuing a protective order as well. Once I got approved for my apartment, I also froze my credit. I've changed my phone carrier and number, as well as making sure none of my documents list Alex as next of kin or POA. Some have asked why I was so paranoid about Alex and his possible future actions. The answer for that actually is somewhat simple: my grandmother. I love that woman to bits. As a teen, she explained why my grandfather was never around. He was extremely abusive and manipulative, and her generation didn't allow divorce really. She wouldn't have been able to buy a house or get a good enough job to support her and my mother on her own. As such, she endured it, shielded my mom as she could until my grandfather died. When I felt like I may have been overreacting, I remembered how she'd said she'd always wished she'd been able to see grandfather for what he was early on when she may have been able to annul the marriage. I don't know when I'll update again, maybe when the divorce goes through or if something big happens, but until then, I'm just trying to keep my head above the water. Update 6. It's been a month since my previous update, and I wanted to share some of what's been going on in the meantime. The divorce is proceeding, but even though I don't need him to agree, and he's not, it means I have to go through the courts to get it approved. As such, it could be upwards of 6 months to push it through, even though I'm filing without attempting to claim property, alimony or compensation. I just want a clean break and separation. Alex has attempted to use our friends to reach out to me, as he doesn't want to use my lawyer for communication. He's saying it's disrespectful and cowardly to hide behind my lawyer and not meet him face to face. Alex wrote me a letter that he did pass off to my lawyer, but the contents were him justifying his actions and claiming that in today's time it is dangerous for women to be on their own, which is why he was so intent on trying to keep me safe from harm. He wanted me to understand that he was trying to protect me as best he could and was hurt that I would just lie to him and hide my actions from him related to my dissatisfaction with our marriage and my moving. I didn't reply, because at no point did he apologize. All he did was turn everything around on me as I was being overly dramatic, emotional and cowardly. There was a second letter with Alex's from my cell. Her letter was honestly disturbing and completely justified my misgivings regarding approaching her in any kind of professional capacity. She spent 5 paragraphs detailing how Ariel's abusive relationship looked like and that Alex was the furthest thing from abusive. The details she included were all related to financial abuse and physical abuse, nothing like what Alex had been doing. She stated that my attempts to smear her brother's name for attention and clout made me the abuser, not him. I haven't really been able to process that, admittedly. Part of me can't help but wonder if she's right. I mean, I blindsided him by leaving as I did and am refusing to speak with him at all. My old boss recommended that I look into getting into therapy after I moved, and I think I need to. I've had a hard time adjusting to being on my own. I keep censoring myself and haven't even gone out to eat yet. I always end up worrying about what if someone sees me. What if I get in trouble for spending my money on something frivolous? My lawyer is continuing to fight for the divorce, and I shouldn't need to be physically present in court. Any meetings needed between me and the judge can be done via Zoom. I'm trying to avoid confrontation with Alex and his family for now as much as I can and pass both letters to my lawyer in case he needs them. Our friends are mostly trying to avoid taking sides still, and I'm honestly approaching the point of just letting them go as well. I'm tired of fighting for them to understand at this point. I don't know if anything is going to happen, so my next update may not be until around mid-November, depending on how long it takes to push the divorce through. Work is going well, and it's helpful to have something familiar to anchor my day-to-day life when so much has changed and is changing even now. After being married for nearly 35 years, I discovered that my husband had a side piece for 2 years. I was devastated and decided to divorce. I've been married almost 35 years, yes, to the same person. And while it hasn't been perfect, it's been alright. Kids, dog, white fence. I've got those. Our personal lives have suffered somewhat. I went from being a virgin on my wedding night to stepping out of my comfort zones to please him sexually. Household of 3, to where Saturday, it will be 6 years since we've been intimate at all. For the longest time, I thought he was having an emotional affair with his male friend, that he had fished with, but had become ill with cancer, because he would drop everything and anything for him, including plans we had, for him. Plus, there were a few texts that, while not sexual, were more than friendship. But for some reason, while I was hurt, I was not threatened. I know he is extremely ill, there is no physical relationship going on, his time is short, and once this was out of his system, he would be back to his normal self and me, his wife. I'm really sorry if my words sound crude, that's not how I want them to sound. But once he passed, my husband would be back to me. So I was gone this past week, dog sitting, house sitting for my sister, and got home last night to check the mail. There was a blank envelope with everything typed. Inside was a short note, picture above. I know who the female is, it's one of his friends. I'm completely devastated. To me, a woman is harder to compete with. What does she have do that I don't? I decided to get healthy and lose weight. I've lost over 130 pounds. I don't hear anything from him. I went to the doctor last week, dressed nicely, and he told me I was embarrassed, that his wife was running around town looking like a whore, with her tits hanging out. I had a slight off-the-shoulder white eyelet with dark jeans. Since finding this out, I've become obsessed with finding evidence. I stalk her Facebook, their call logs. He calls her an average of 68 times a day with calls lasting 5-15 minutes. I'll drive by her house. I'll type and delete her name, phone number, address, wanting to confront both of them, blame her, blame him. Wonder what she has that I don't, how I can fix this. Do I want to fix it, does he? What should I do? Where do I go? How? I've cried for 2 days now. I can't stand to look at him, and I'm afraid to talk to him. Update 1. So after a few days of crying and feeling miserable, I became obsessed with finding more information. Mind you, this all came to light last Sunday. Before that, I was walking around in an ignorant state of not knowing. So I started scanning phone logs, daily phone calls to and from her 6 to 7 plus times a day, 20-40 minutes each. I had a typo in my first post. I went through his office, nightstand, etc. I don't know exactly what I was looking for, but I was looking for something. I would drive by her house when he would leave. In other words, I was going crazy. And by Wednesday, I broke. I was tired of him acting like it's a normal day, that there was nothing going on. I could not take it anymore, and I first wanted to talk to her. So I took off in my car, drove to the dog park, empty. So I drove to her house, started pounding on her security door, and ringing her doorbell. She has a ring, telling her to open her effing door, and if you're woman enough to FK a married man, you should be woman enough to talk to his wife. This went on for maybe 10 minutes or so. She didn't answer. I texted my husband that we needed to talk and that, I know. My sister is on the phone with me trying to calm me down and get me to leave her place before the police are called. In the 3 minutes, yes, he picked someone in our community, it took me to get home. Not only had she called him, she also sent him the video. So I confronted him, somewhat. It was more like he gaslit me the entire time. He said, "Get your ass in the house, I can't believe you did something so effing stupid," etc. And turned it around on me. "You're always sitting on the couch unless your sister invites you out." And he didn't deny he was with her, "It's none of your business." When I asked if he would stop seeing her, he said he would not give her up. She is a good friend of his. And the biggest smack in my face, he wants me to apologize to her. For embarrassing her in her neighborhood. And I guess she is talking about filing a restraining order against me. So Thursday and Friday, I finished my pity party, and Saturday, I started doing things I never thought I would have to do on my 35th anniversary. I reached out to divorce attorneys. They were closed but filled out the forms for consultations. I also started a resume and applied for jobs, but after not working for 20 plus years, what kind of work am I going to be qualified for? I stayed at my sister's this weekend. I needed the change of scenery between his attitude, the not happening anniversary, and the funky feeling. I needed a break. Update 2. So it's been about a month since I found out about his affair. It still sucks. And I'd like to say I've totally gotten over him, but one doesn't turn off feelings like a light switch. At least I don't. And sometimes, I think, maybe we can fix this, but then he does something awful again, and I'm back on track with my plans and goals. So I've set goals for myself and have been working towards them. My first one, get a job. I was a housewife for 99% of my marriage. Not only did I get one, I found two that I can work at the same time. I opened a secret account, not in my name, and am stashing all my extra money in it. He controls all the house money tightly, so I have to get creative. He knows about one job, not the other one though. I've gone back to school to get my degree, geared towards what I'm doing. So far, it's going well. I'm remaining positive and pushing forward, even when he gets negative towards me. You're just going to quit, you will flunk out, etc. I am saving for a small place, hopefully a little ADU or an apartment, that will allow my little dogs. Once the apartment is lined up, then I will file for divorce. I need to make sure I have a safe place to go because he will become nasty once served. So far, things are calm here. I don't ask about her, although they still speak daily, and I'm sure they are hanging out. In our community, it's like he is trying to rub my nose in it. The thing is, I'm not letting him know or see that it's bothering me at all, which in turn is bugging the crap out of him. So he threatened to take my phone away. Okay, fine, I went and bought a cheap burner phone, just in case he does. So now he has switched to being nice. He has bought parts for my car, paid the labor, bought my scrubs and equipment I need for work and school. He asked for a list and bought it. It's times when he's nice, I think there might be hope for us. But as long as she is in the picture, nope. Then he turns back into the ass again with empty threats, knocking down my confidence, and I'm back to counting months until I can move. Update 3. I'm still on my phone and just worked an overnight shift, so I'm tired. We are in the month of June, and quite a bit has transpired, some good, some not. I finally broke down and told my kids. Those were extremely difficult calls to make, and I told them everything. I took responsibility for my part and admitted I could have done things better. My kids, all older, said that while not perfect, I did my best with what I had, and that didn't excuse his cheating. My eldest wanted to come out and confront his dad and the other woman. I told him it wasn't worth it. My second son, the thinker, didn't say much but was deep in thought. My third son said, "It's about time, with the way he talked to you and treated you. I hope you're thinking about leaving." I was honestly on the fence. He would flip-flop between wanting to work on us and his actions saying differently. The past 2 weeks have been the worst. Since he has been using my son's car, my son put a tracking device in it. Yes, I have access to it, and no, he does not know about it. He would tell me he was going to one place and go straight to the other woman's house. If I asked where he was, he would lie to my face. I just kept notes until I couldn't anymore. Father's Day. I had worked the night before, got off work at 8 a.m., texted him what he wanted for dinner that night, stopped at the store, bought everything, came home, got it started, and tried to take a nap. Mind you, he did nothing whatsoever on Mother's Day. He woke me up to borrow $40 to go to a sporting goods store. I said fine and reminded him dinner was in an hour to an hour and a half. 2 hours later, he was not back. I checked the tracking. He went straight to her house and hadn't moved. So I did a drive-by. His car was parked in the garage, she was parked outside, so I came back home. I was more upset for my son. I texted him, "You need to come home, we need to talk. I know you're not at the sports store." Nothing. After 30 minutes, his car still had not moved, so I called her. Of course, she didn't answer. I left a voicemail. "I know my husband is at your house, you win, I'm done. It's obvious he wants to be with you. I'm tired of the lies, his bull, he doesn't want someone who has loved and fought for him for 35 years. I'm done, come get his dog and his stuff, you've won." 10 minutes later, he came in with a Walmart bag and said he went to Walmart and a friend made tacos for him. I dished up servings for my son and me, then threw the rest of the meal in the trash. He gave me an attitude because she feels threatened now that I called her. She has to change her number and might lose clients. I didn't threaten her. I told him if he wasn't happy here, he knew where the door was and was welcome to use it. He was quiet all week but still a jerk, and his only concern was seeing that woman. I had melanoma removed and needed a driver, so he took me. When I got in the car, not one word, not how are you, how did it go, are you okay? Nope, all he said was, I'm hungry. And it was the 30th anniversary of losing my sister to melanoma, so I was extra sensitive. Little things were just adding up. He was forgetting things I needed or had asked for. I was at the bottom of his list. On our son's birthday, he couldn't even wait for him to blow out the candles before he went to her house. This last Sunday, he was going through the kitchen cabinets, pulling out some soup and said he was going to take it to a couple who had been stranded down the road for a couple of weeks in a broken-down RV. So I gathered a few more items, and he left the bag of stuff on the counter. I checked and yep, he went right to her house. This was it, my last bit of energy for this marriage. I texted him again. I don't understand why you need to lie. There is no dog park, hiking trail, fishing spot, sporting goods store, broken-down RV, nor Walmart on Bunker Hill. Why not be honest and tell me you're going to her house? It's obvious, regardless of what you're saying, you don't want to work on our marriage. You have and are choosing her over your family. And I sent it. I tried to call him. He didn't answer, so I texted. Didn't think you would answer. Not even 5 minutes later, he came screeching into the driveway, slamming into the house screaming, "What the F is wrong with you, you fing mother fing b?" I'm sure if I was in the same room as him, he would have hit me. I told him I'm tired of him lying to me. Just tell me he's going to the whore's house. He's been going there the entire time and yet still lies about it. Doesn't he think if I'm questioning where he is I know? He called me a few choice names and ignored me the rest of the night. I'm sure my neighbors loved it. I went yesterday, Monday, to file for divorce and got bad news. Because he is a 1099 employee and hasn't technically worked in almost 2 years, although my bills are paid, I'm not in his bank accounts. I never have been. I've always had to ask for money from him. Because he stopped me from doing his taxes 3 years ago, saying they were too complicated for me. If I were to file for divorce right now and ask for alimony, he could immediately file to lower it, and the judge could agree with him. My lawyer suggested waiting 3 months to file, as he is now working again, started this week and submitted paper bids. I'm to collect as much evidence as I can in the meantime. The lawyer was impressed with what I had so far. So, I'm planning and playing it cool till September. Relevant comments. Comment 1, I know this hurts now, but you will be better off without someone draining your life. I don't know much about this, but I think you should get a second opinion from another lawyer. 1099 forms still count as proof of income. They might be able to subpoena those and his full tax records, even if he hasn't filed them. Reply, he owns his own business and gets a 1099 from the company he subcontracts through. I haven't seen a tax return in 3 years since we file separately. I try to look when he's not home, but his office is a mess. I'll keep searching because there must be something. OOP on why she needs alimony. My children are all grown, and I just started working again 2 months ago after spending most of our marriage as a housewife, taking care of him and our kids. My youngest son is 20 but has special needs and mentally is about 12. Earlier, when I found out about the affair, I would have done anything to get him back. Now. No, I don't want him back. I deserve better. OOP on securing legal documents. All those documents have been moved to a safe place since April. OOP explains why she is waiting until September for alimony. I've lasted this long and honestly, if I left now, I couldn't afford a decent place with my son, even with my job. After everything I've done, including caring for his mom, helping with his business and running the home, I deserve it. I just want what's fair to get a safe place for my son. According to the lawyer, it could mean the difference between $500 a month and $4,500 a month. These are rough figures, but it's a substantial difference. We annulled our engagement because my fiancé valued friendship more than love when I asked his best man to wear a tuxedo. I, 26, am getting married to Mark, 28, a handsome, responsible, intelligent man with a kind heart and a great sense of humor. My sister Jennifer, 23, is going to be his best man. Jennifer is best friends with my husband Mark, 26. He's known her more than twice as long as he's known me. We only really met and talked at any length about 3 years ago or so. They were co-workers together at her high school job, and she's been a part of his gaming group since then. They went to the same college, and they're co-workers again now working for his friend John's, 42, company. Mark was in college for the better part of a decade getting 2 undergraduate degrees and his PhD, and Jennifer ended up doing the same major as him, likely due to his encouragement. She's thinking about her master's in the same field, but they both work full-time now. In addition to being co-workers and playing Dungeons and Dragons together, they also game online, and they hang out all the time. They've gone to conventions together, either as part of a group, or just the two of them. They do local classes and events together, and Mark helps Jennifer with her photography and editing. While she has a solid full-time job she likes, Jennifer still has aspirations of being a model, influencer. She loves fashion, and she's also into cosplay. After we got engaged, we were at a family dinner, and I was talking to Mark about the wedding party, and I mentioned that even though I have two sisters, I wanted my own best friend Helen, 26, to be my maid of honor. Mark said that was great, because he actually wanted to ask Jennifer to be his best man. Jennifer immediately and enthusiastically agreed. Being a female best man is just the kind of thing she'd love. Obviously, even if that meant she wouldn't be one of my bridesmaids. She also knew that between our other sister and some of my friends I had too many people who needed to be bridesmaids, and Mark was worried about being short on groomsmen. This was all fine and well until later on when we were talking about what people were going to wear. I picked out my dream wedding dress, and I coordinated the bridesmaid dresses, and Mark was going to have his groomsmen, most of which were other gaming buddies in tuxedos. I had to talk him out of putting them in cosplay/Ren Fair stuff. However, Jennifer was going to wear a dress. Jennifer is a very tall, very attractive woman, and to be perfectly frank, she has a large chest. The dress that she wants to wear was designed by one of her friends online, and while it's not white or anything, it's mostly red and black and pretty well matches the other groomsmen, and it's formal and fancy. It definitely shows off her figure. I wouldn't say in a slutty way at all, but it just does. She would also, as the best woman, stand out from the other men on the groom's side, especially in the heels she wanted to wear with the dress. After dropping a few hints here and there and broaching the subject of each side of the wedding party matching in women's tuxedos, I gently requested that Mark have Jennifer wear a tuxedo rather than the dress and shoes she wanted and he had previously liked. When they gave me pushback, I pointed out to Jennifer that she might be too exposed, or she might distract people with such a flashy dress. Jennifer gave me a dirty look and said half under her breath, "Are you fucking serious?" And before I could react, she just said, "Fine. Fuck it. You're the bride. I'll wear the fucking tuxedo." Mark sighed and half said some things about it being ridiculous, but then when I asked him what he said he just said, "Okay, it's whatever, it's fine." Since then, Mark and Jennifer have been passive-aggressively making fun of my concerns, with them doing things like Mark comedy ogling her chest, or her making all sorts of boob jokes. She's done things like ostentatiously covering up her chest with her hands when she moves past people while saying things like, "Gotta guard the girls, wouldn't want to knock anyone over." Both her and Mark keep making fake Freudian slips about her chest or her figure, and Jennifer even pretends to lose her balance and fall over because her boobs were too heavy. They pretty much just do this when I'm around. They seem to think it's hilarious. They've made it very well known that Jen is really disappointed about not getting to wear the dress and that her seamstress friend is upset about it too, and Mark has seemed a bit distant and disinterested in wedding planning. I was looking over some tuxedos for women and making some suggestions to Jennifer, about ones that aren't too tight in the chest or hips, and she just showed me the one that she had already picked out and said, "Is this fine, or did you want to further micromanage my specific tuxedo?" We started to get into a fight, and she accused me of being a bridezilla. When I told her she was being a bad sister, she said that she wasn't the one who was being body shamed and told what to wear. I told her my requests weren't body shaming, and she said that they were the same thing. My parents completely took Jennifer's side and said that I should just let her wear the dress. Obviously, she showed it to them too, and they thought it was beautiful. They like her friend too, and her friend has done clothing and costumes with her before. My father said that I should at least stop bothering her about the tuxedo if I'm going to make her wear one, and then I should just let her go with the one she picked. The one she wants though is very high visual impact and it is also very tailored. She said she can match it to the colors, but I feel like she'd still stand out. When I tried to get Mark to weigh in on this, he just said, "It's your wedding, do whatever you want." I guess I'll tell her to do whatever you want. And I obviously don't feel like he's very invested. I feel like he's not on the same page, but he just doesn't want to argue. He's always like that. Even though we both have good jobs, both Jennifer and I still live at home with our parents, because housing is ridiculous, and it's been awkward around each other. I've been staying over at Mark's a lot over the last year, and I was supposed to be officially moving in, but he's been kind of cool and passive about it recently. Everyone seems to be acting like I'm the asshole here. Even though Mark and Jennifer are the ones being passive-aggressive and unreasonable. I almost feel I should have just made Jennifer a bridesmaid right off the bat or told Mark that it didn't make sense for him to have female groomsmen. Am I the asshole for wanting my husband's best man to just wear a normal tuxedo? Update 1, there is not going to be a wedding. John, 42, of all people, Mark's 28 boss and gaming buddy noticed my post, as it got way more attention than I ever expected. We've only ever met a couple of times and hardly ever talked before, but he reached out to me with, "This is John, LOL, call me." So I called him from the parking lot after work. John says he's been married for about 20 years, and he's tried to give Mark relationship advice. He doesn't think we're a good match. He told me that I should talk to Mark and that Mark has been unhappy with our relationship and extremely unhappy with the wedding planning, even to the point that it's a running gag amongst him and his friends. I got into it a bit with John, because to be fair to me, Mark's ideas have been ridiculous. Just some of the things he asked for, and which John, Jennifer, 23F, and his buddies thought would be cool. He wanted the wedding party to have custom swords, daggers and amulets. He wanted them to have the swords during the ceremony, and he thought people would like fantasy amulets. Mark had told me that John was willing to pay for the bridesmaid dresses if we had them done by Jennifer's costumer friend. I told him no, because I wanted normal, nice bridesmaids dresses from someplace reputable and that the bridesmaids could buy them themselves. John told me that he had offered this as a bit of a bet with Mark. Mark wanted to serve meat at the wedding. He said that his friend, John, could provide it and that he made meat in his basement and had tons of it. I obviously said no, because why would I want meat at my wedding, never mind some guy's basement meat. John got a laugh out of this at the time, and talked to me, because he's a nerd who likes to laugh at his own jokes. Apparently, he's very proud of his basement mead, and they like to make toast with it. Basement mead has apparently become a running gag in their games, as John insisted on telling me. Frankly, John seemed kind of tickled with himself just because he was speaking with me. Mark wanted the band at the wedding to play classical covers of video game and superhero music. Mark wanted the reception to have a jester, who would wander around doing magic tricks and asking people riddles. Some lady that Mark and his friends know asked if she could be an elf at our wedding and wear her forest gown, and Mark said he'd ask me, and he described it as some kind of green Greek toga dress with leaves and elven writing on it, and that she'd have elf ears. It's a wedding, not a costume party, so I don't even know why he would ask that. I mentioned this stuff to John, and he recognized all of it and some more things to add besides, because Mark would always vent to them about the wedding plans, and John just agreed along, saying that I was constantly shooting down all of Mark's ideas. The point is that all of Mark's ideas were completely ridiculous, and that I wanted to have a wedding and not a Halloween party. John laughed when I brought this up to him and said that these ideas were awesome, and that I was just being too boring. John said that he thought we weren't a good match, and that he's told Mark that he needs to talk to me. I asked him if he thought Mark and Jennifer were a good match, and he just said yes. I asked if there had been anything between them, and he said no. He said he's 100% certain they've never hooked up, because Mark doesn't have the poker face for it, especially with as much as him and the other group members ribbed them over it. He said that Mark is too oblivious for his own good, and that the week after her 18th birthday, Jennifer said, pretty much straight to Mark, "I'm 18, so you can fuck me now." And Mark just laughed it off as a joke. It does sound like something she'd say, because Jennifer does love making inappropriate sexual jokes. John thought there was more to it though. They've had their characters date each other in games. He said they've been the very model of chastity since Mark has been dating me. Once at an event, Jennifer was supposed to kiss Mark, but instead she kissed the palm of her hand and then had him kiss her palm. John is fully confident that neither of them would cheat. I went over to Mark's house, because he hadn't called or texted in a while, and he basically confirmed everything John said. Mark said that I stressed him out when I was over, and he wasn't sure about me moving in because thinking about it gave him anxiety. He didn't like any of my ideas for our house. It was his childhood home, and he's resistant to changing anything. He just has his stuff everywhere and wherever. He kept trying to talk about giving me some rooms, or some space, when it's supposed to be our home where all of the space belongs to both of us. He was extremely frustrated about the wedding planning, and he felt like he didn't have a say. He said the dress Jennifer wanted to wear was just about the final straw, because I told him he could pick the outfits for the groomsmen, and I told him Jen could be in a dress as long as it matched. She really loves the dress, and she got it from her friend. She and John and apparently all of his buddies warned him that I'd find some way to have a problem with it. He says that I talk him in circles whenever he tries to choose or change anything, even though all of his suggestions are ridiculous. And he said he'd just about given up caring by the time I complained about the dress, so he didn't bother fighting about it. He said it upset him the way I was body shaming Jennifer about her figure and her breasts. He thought I was being jealous and controlling, and that I had been a bridezilla ever since he proposed. When I asked him why he even proposed, if I apparently give him anxiety and he doesn't even want me to move in with him. He said he felt like he was pressured to either propose or break up, and he hoped things would get better and that he didn't know if he had a good enough reason to break up. When I told him that I never pressured him to propose, he said that all of my friends and family know that I consider it a goal to get married before I'm 30, and he brought up a document on his phone where he had taken notes about what kind of proposal I wanted from all the times I had talked about it. He said that he started the document because of how obviously important it was to me to have a perfect proposal and how often I talked about what I wanted. He proposed because he felt like he had to either marry me or dump me if I was going to have time for my plans. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a timeline for your life, and I wanted to start having kids by my late 20s or early 30s at the latest. I mentioned all of this to Mark again, and he said that that was fine for me, but that he was kind of on the fence about when to have kids. And he mentioned that Jennifer isn't sure about having kids at all and certainly isn't in any hurry about them, but I told him that doesn't have anything to do with anything and that Jennifer is just being short-sighted. I asked him if anything had happened between him and Jennifer, and he said no, and I believe him. I asked him why he wasn't dating Jennifer, and he said that at first she was too young, and then he was seeing someone, and then he was dating me, and he said that he values his friendship with her more than anything. He said that his friendship with Jennifer was worth not getting to be with her that way, and that she's too attractive to want to be with him. Apparently, the only reason Mark even started dating me is because he tried flirting with me at a family party we were at, and he said I seemed into him. He doesn't think of himself as handsome, but he is, and he's got his PhD, a great job, and his own house at 28. He's definitely a catch. He didn't agree, and he said he's only ever dated his high school prom date, a girl who was kind of his girlfriend until she graduated and left, and me. Mark apologized and said that he wanted to put a hold on any more wedding or moving plans, and that he wasn't sure about the relationship. I had already started crying, but then I broke down and he apologized again. He said he was sorry for messing up my plans, and that he kept hoping things would get better. I left as soon as I felt like I could drive. By the time I got home, Mark had already texted Jen, "Your sister is crying. Sorry," and the two of them had been on the phone the whole time. And of course my mom knew and she tried to comfort me, but I could just tell she wanted to say "I told you so," because she had been warning me I was going to drive Mark away, and she thought he was better with Jennifer too. Jennifer said that she tried really hard to have this work out, because she just wants Mark to be happy, and that she had tried inviting me to gaming, and for Christmas before last she bought me a Switch with games Mark likes, and that she was sorry stuff happened this way. She accused me of not really liking or caring about Mark and just wanting a generic husband. When I told her that wasn't fair, she mentioned the same stuff from the wedding planning and a bunch of other stuff from our relationship that she said made Mark feel ignored or suffocated. She said that the only reason I liked him was because he ticked boxes and always gave in and let me have my way. We started arguing, but our mom stepped in before we could get into it too bad. I asked Jennifer about what this meant for her and Mark, and she said he is absolutely her best friend and nothing is ever going to change that, and that she loves him. When I asked how she loves him, she just said that's not a discussion she wants to have right now. Our mom said everyone needed to cool off, and that was enough for Jen to step away and drop the subject. One of the commenters on my original post asked why I was marrying my sister's boyfriend, and my mom asked very nearly the same thing. She questioned how I had started dating Mark just about as soon as his age gap with Jennifer stopped being awkward, and she implied I shouldn't have been dating him in the first place. That's not fair at all. It's not like he's her property. And Jennifer can clearly just go get whatever man she wants. It's not like she had any kind of claim on a man just for knowing him. Even while she was trying to comfort me and saying that things will be all right, my mom wouldn't stop implying that I was wrong for going after Mark in the first place or criticizing me for how the relationship went. She said that Mark wasn't the man for me, and I could tell she meant that he belonged with someone like Jennifer, as if I'm not good enough or what I want doesn't matter. And then I caught her talking to Jen about how things should be fine and how she should try not to be mad at me as if I was the one in the wrong or I should be apologizing to her. Jennifer just kind of went on like normal and went ahead and went to go game with Mark and her friends the next day. I know they've been chatting online like normal. I gave Jennifer Mark's ring to give back to him, and then I had a missed call from him while I was in the shower and a text that said, "Okay, I guess we are broken up then. I'm sorry. I don't know if I messed this up or if everyone else were the assholes here. Sorry this was so long. A lot of stuff has come out. I feel like I'm definitely not going to get married by the time I'm 30. Related comments. Comment 1. Everyone in this situation is at fault, but I feel bad for OOP because her own mother accused her of stealing her sister's soulmate just because she accepted his invitation to date. The fiancé approached her first, so why is it wrong that she accepted? While it might be true that OOP wanted to meet certain goals and saw him as a way to achieve them, Her boyfriend isn't her sister's property. He asked her out and then proposed. Why is she being villainized for thinking they were in a mutual relationship? Comment 2. Seriously, Mark is the biggest villain in this story. He essentially said, I have a crush on this underage girl at work. I'm going to befriend her and then date her older sister because she's the closest approximation I can get. He told OP he loved her and wanted to spend their lives together when he proposed. But behind her back, he made fun of her with his friends, knowing he'd rather be with someone else. He wasted her time and used her plans to marry by 30 against her. Nobody in this situation is nice, but Mark caused most of the suffering. Comment 3. Everyone in this situation is exhausted. Both people in the relationship aren't compatible, and those around them aren't great either. It's truly one of those, everyone sucks here moments. We've been married for 6 years. While pregnant with our third, I discovered my husband had been having a 4-month affair with my best friend. OP and her husband had been together since she was 19 and he was 22. Married for 6 years now with 2 kids, third baby on the way. She found out her dad has cancer. Her mother passed away when she was 12. OP's husband has been very supportive from day one and suggested that she step away from her job for a while to take care of her family. OP has her best friend who she knew since they were babies. Both families grew up together. After going to wake her husband up, she discovered her friend's text messages to him from his phone. Realizing it has been going on for 4 months that OP's husband and her best friend have been lying to her. She tries to figure out what to do next that she knows now about the affair. Update 1. OP spent a good amount of time gathering and documenting everything she has on her husband and her best friend. Used her dad's hospice care plan as a front cover so her husband doesn't know she knew. She is thinking about going back to work, but working with a lawyer first to get things in order should she move forward with the next steps of her life. Per her lawyer, OP doesn't have to worry about her inheritance from her parents which her husband cannot touch. While her husband was at work, OP revealed what took place between her husband and best friends to their mothers who are now upset about the whole incident. Met with the lawyer, OP gets her finances, logistics, and everything in order to make sure she is in a good position to go after her husband and best friend. Update 2. OP provides a quick summary on how things went so quickly in the last couple posts. She was able to meet with her OB/GYN on the same day to get checked, all clear. Several more tests were done and waiting for the results to arrive. OP met with her lawyer to go over everything including her husband's financial records that she got a hold of to make sure her bases are covered. If everything goes well with what she got, OP should not have any problems with getting the divorce papers within a month. Angie and Ruth, MIL and ex-BFF's mothers, told OP what happened after both sets of parents confronted Tyler, ex, and Jess, ex-best friend. All 4 are very upset with both for the affair. Tyler and Jess have been cut off from their families. Tyler discovers OP has moved her stuff and their children's stuff to her dad's to get away. He went to look for OP, but she wasn't there. She left for her dad's cabin with her kids, now away and safe. Tyler gets arrested after trying to break into OP's dad's house, not cabin. OP had to get a therapy session in order to talk things out from her end and will set up therapy sessions for her children as needed. Per her lawyer, OP is now collecting all text messages from Jess who told her to fix everything, especially her parents cutting her off. Blamed OP for stealing Tyler from her. Tyler has begged to reconcile, but OP isn't giving in. He doesn't know about the divorce papers yet until he would be served with them. OP suspected Tyler and Jess won't be staying together since their parents have confronted them. Jess's brother, Jake, is on leave from the military. He is stepping in to help OP and her family per Angie and Bob. OP thanks the Redditors for the continuing support as she deals with the whole situation on Tyler and Jess. Update 3. Tyler finds OP's post and asked if she is serving him the divorce papers. OP said yes. He begs for forgiveness for his behaviors toward her. OP makes regular meetings with her lawyer to make sure she has everything as needed to make things smooth. Jake is doing great, being a great support system for OP and her children. OP's dad is not doing well, now in the hospital for a while. Kids are adjusting well along with therapy already set up to cope with the unexpected events in their lives after moving away from Tyler. Still pregnant for a couple more months. Update 4. OP's dad has died. Her marriage ended in dissolution after Tyler found out about being served with the papers. Per her lawyer, the dissolution process was quickly and smoothly after Tyler gave OP everything she asked for in the prior divorce papers. OP has full custody of the kids with visitations for Tyler. Therapy is going on for OP and her kids. Still pregnant, but the baby is doing well. OP's ex-MIL, Ruth, and ex-BFF's mom, Angie, are helping her with the kids. All 3 women are on great terms with each other. Jake has gone back to his active duties but will be back to help OP and her family. Their friendship is going great and might be moving on to the next step, but Jake and OP are taking things slowly. Tyler and Jess are no longer together. He has left Jess, who has been blacklisted from her family after the blow-up. Update 5. Mill and Angie are taking turns spending the night and days with me for the first 6 weeks until we get acclimated. I told them they didn't have to, but they insisted. Honestly, I'm grateful for it. I can feel the waves of PPD trying to drag me under, and my mental health really hasn't been doing so well. Don't worry, my therapist knows and we're working through it. Knowing that this baby never gets to know and feel the love of my dad has really been hurting, and the fact that this is the only grandbaby he didn't get to meet. I miss him like crazy and wish he was still here. Jake was planning on staying in for another 2 years to retire, but they offered him early retirement. Not because of anything going on with me or this whole situation. There was a situation at work. He didn't do anything wrong, lol. So within the next 6 months he'll be moving back home. He's going to try house hunting and find a place before he comes home, but since he isn't allowed to take any leave during this time to view places since he has to work on his exit stuff, there's a chance he'll be temporarily living with me until he finds a place. No, he isn't moving in permanently, lol. He might even just get an apartment for a year and then buy a house. There's also some drama with Tyler already because he's pissed I wouldn't let him in the room when I had a baby. So if you want any more updates on that front, I'll provide when I'm not overwhelmed. Love you all. Thank you all for being my ear when I need to vent and get everything off my chest. I hope all of your days are wonderful today and everything goes your way. Update 6. So if you read any of my previous comments, you know that baby boy is here. He's honestly been the calmest newborn that I've ever managed. Hardly cries, is very content and happy all the time. He's been reaching all of his milestone markers, even hitting the ones that aren't on the premier scale. It's been such a relief and a blessing. The older two completely adore him and are of course eating up the extra attention they get from their grandparents. Yes, Angie and her husband are called grandma and grandpa as well. When I went into labor, I had told Tyler that I was in labor, but I didn't want him at the hospital. It is his kid, so I was being courteous. He blew up on me for taking away his right to see his child be brought into the world. I simply turned off my phone to relax and de-stress. He actually showed up at the hospital and had to be escorted off the property by security. Not for being violent or anything, he just wouldn't leave after I'd told the nurses. I delivered at the hospital I work at. I'm an RN. I didn't want him around. After that, he hasn't been to a single visit to see the kids. I initially sent him pictures of the baby and updates, but he never responded and eventually blocked my number. After roughly a month, I asked my FIL to reach out to him since no one had heard from him. My FIL actually showed up at Tyler's house to do a well check since I was concerned something was wrong. Even though I don't love him anymore, there is a piece of me that will always care for him as the father of my children. Turns out he has a new girlfriend and just isn't interested in being a dad anymore. He actually even denied paternity even though he's the only person I've ever been with physically. The kids are honestly and surprisingly okay with him not really being around. No, I didn't feel it necessary to tell them the harsh things he said. Jake has been completely amazing. He had my favorite food delivered to me at the hospital post-birth. FaceTiming me and texting me regularly. Chatting it up with the kids. Hasn't been pushy on me at all. Has let me set the pace completely. Hasn't crossed any of my boundaries in the slightest. He actually booked me a surprise postnatal massage and arranged all of it, including childcare. It was the most relaxed I've felt in months. He sends little gifts and food to the house occasionally, especially on my hard days. Jake has truly been a breath of fresh air. He comes home in just over 3 months and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited. As for me, I've still been regularly attending therapy. It's really helped me cope and just in general become a better person and mother. I'm still devastated by my dad's passing and grief really loves to put a chokehold on me when I least expect it. Sometimes I just go sit in his office where it smells the most like him and cry. I was very blessed to have such a loving and amazing dad. Angie and MIL have truly been angels on earth. I cannot express how beyond lucky I am to have this amazing support system. Even Phil, Angie's husband, have been insanely supportive and kind. I would be lost without their unconditional love and support. As crazy as it sounds, I'm honestly unbothered by the divorce and Tyler not being around anymore. I think I'm more relieved than anything. My heart aches for my children, but IDK. I don't think I truly realized how long I was holding my breath and walking on eggshells in that marriage until I was in a space where I didn't have to anymore. My therapist and I really dug deep and took off the rose-colored glasses. In a weird yet awful way, I'm almost thankful I caught him cheating. I think that's why I was so calm and methodical during the leaving phase. I go back to work next week. I think I'm ready to find my new normal and get back into a routine. While my heart aches my dad isn't around to see it, I'm ready to unlock this next chapter of my life. Cheers to the chapter of healing, self-love, new beginnings, and finding peace within the chaos. Thank you for going through this journey with me, supporting me, sharing your stories with me, and just being here. Love you all, internet friends. I hope you have an amazing day. I'll update again when I can. Update 7. I come bearing some much anticipated news, but I'm going to breeze over a few things other people wanted to know before we get into the Jake update. A lot of people are wondering if Tyler is still to this day not seeing the kids. He isn't. He no longer responds to his dad, who was trying to be the middleman so he didn't have to communicate with me. He told his dad that his girlfriend made him choose, and he's choosing her because I wouldn't go through her to communicate with him. Mind you, I don't even know who she is. I don't even know her first name. That's how much I don't know about her. I told him if he wanted to use a third party to communicate with the kids, I would be completely okay with that, but not someone who is a stranger to me or the kids. We could use his aunt, who has remained neutral during the divorce and all of this. It wasn't good enough for him or her, I guess, so he decided to cut all contact. He didn't see the kids for Christmas or New Year. Shortly after the New Year is when he went full no contact. I'm managing the kids and working full-time as best as I can. I'm so grateful for all of the help I have. My MIL and Angie take turns watching the kids while I work, as they're both retired. More often than not, I come home to a clean house, happy kids, and dinner on the stove. They truly are the biggest blessings. I'm giving a huge shout out to the single parents who do this completely on their own with no help from outsiders or the other parent, because I cannot fathom how much strength you've had to muster to do it alone. I've had quite a few people ask me if I'm religious. The answer is yes. I am a religious person, however. I will not now, nor ever judge anyone for who they are. Yes, that includes the girls, gays, and they. The people who were born in the wrong body. No one should ever be able to tell you who you are or who you love is wrong. I support and love everyone in all walks of life. You matter. Your religion or non-religion matters, even if it's not the same one I follow. Hell, I have friends who practice witchcraft, and I love that they're so passionate about it and it makes them happy. I absolutely love that for them. The people who are taking away women's rights or rights of the LGBT community in the name of religion make me absolutely disgusted. I feel like I needed that disclaimer to be added because I don't want anyone to rope me into that category. I will also not be entertaining any religious debates. Argue with your mother, not me. Finally, on to Jake. We're dating currently. I use the air quotes because we've been going on dates and spending time together but aren't officially boyfriend and girlfriend, if that makes sense. He kissed me for the first time at midnight on New Year's. Cheesy? Yes. Did I still love it? Absolutely. I'm not ready to offer anything more right now. We have the occasional date night out, but a lot of our dates include things with the kids like movie nights, going to the park, spending time at the house playing with them. The kids adore him and he adores them right back. I have quite a few pictures of him holding the baby, trying to soothe him to sleep, and he winds up accidentally napping with the baby, lol. He's allowing me to completely set the pace. He's patient with me at all times. I honestly feel so lucky. I told Jake if he wanted to date other people he could, and he looked at me like I had slapped him and was adamant I would be the only woman he'd pursue. Sometimes I feel guilty that he's healing a heart he didn't break, but he never hesitates to remind me that he's in this completely and will wait forever if he has to. I waited so long to share this because I wanted his stamp of approval to continue to share what is quickly evolving into our love story. I allowed him to read my posts and everyone's comments. He might have gotten a little bit of a big head with how much everyone is Team Jake. He pokes fun at me for it, and I love it, honestly. This man is so funny without ever being mean. He even said, "It's a breath of relief to know your internet family approves of me." He did create a Reddit account to look at my posts with my approval. He'll likely mostly be a silent follower, but don't be surprised if he pops up in the comments occasionally, lol. Update 8. Can you believe that in less than 2 weeks it's been a year since I made my first post on Reddit the morning I discovered my ex-husband's affair? I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has supported me on this journey. Y'all have been such a blessing. Whether it's for advice, kind words, or just a listening ear. I am so lucky to have developed my own little community here on Reddit. Now on to some updates. The Jake update will be at the end of the post if you want to skip to read that first. I know y'all are feral for it, lol. First things first, I meant to update sooner, but if you saw Jake's comment you know I was locked out of my account. Well, someone changed the password to my Reddit account and then the email to it as well. You'll never guess who it was. If you guessed Tyler, you'd be wrong. It was Jess. Let's rewind about a month ago. I'm cooking dinner for Jake and the kids while Jake is playing in my backyard with the kids. My front door opens and I figured it was one of my in-laws. They don't usually drop by unexpectedly, but Angie and Emil, totally forgot the fake name I assigned to her. Both have a key to my house since they help me out so much. It's just easier that way. Imagine my surprise when I'm chopping up carrots to see Jess waltz into my kitchen. I simply pointed the knife at the door and told her to get the hell out of my house before I called the cops and pressed charges for breaking and entering and trespassing. I wasn't concerned with how she got into my house. I keep my doors locked 24/7. Call it paranoia if you will. I just wanted her out and would figure the rest out later. She started screaming bloody murder and was calling me psycho for threatening her with a knife. Jake heard the screams and rushed inside. His immediate response was to restrain Jess because he thought she was hurting me even though there was a solid 10 to 15 feet between us. He dragged her out of the house and told her to leave. She was screaming that she would ruin my life and all she was coming over to do was ask for forgiveness. Well, she called the cops on us and made up this elaborate story about how we lured her to my house to set her up, how I tried to stab her, and Jake was punching her repeatedly. She had zero proof and I have cameras hitting every angle of the outside of my house and in all of the main rooms in the inside of my house. Naturally, I just pulled up the footage and showed the cops and they left, taking her with them. Jake has spent the night at my house every night since then. Since then she has hacked into every single last one of my social media accounts, including Reddit. She posted some truly awful and hateful things on my Facebook and Instagram. I'm thankful she didn't manage to post anything on Reddit before I got it back. She spammed my job. I'm a nurse at our local hospital, with complaints and some truly awful fabricated stories about me. After a week of suspension to investigate, I was welcomed back after everything I told my boss and my boss's boss, HR, and everyone else above me proved to be true. I filed for a restraining order against her and my children when she tried to pick up my oldest from her school without anyone's knowledge. Thankfully, I already had a talk with the school about this and gave them a strict, only these people can pick up my child, everyone else you send away, call the cops, or whatever you need to do. When Tyler got violent in front of the kids a while back, and they escorted her off school grounds and kept her very close by for pickup until they saw me. Right now I got an emergency order approved but will have to go to court for a more permanent one within the next month. So I will let you know how that goes. She must have had a key from when we were growing up together or something because Angie and her husband have not spoken to her, nor has she had access to them or their home. I got the locks changed immediately. The Tyler update is that there is none. He still hasn't reached out to see his kids, hasn't asked about them. He's been a ghost. We were eating dinner with Jake about a week ago when my oldest quietly said she wished Jake was her dad, and that her real dad never played with them and was really mean when I wasn't home or looking. Which really just confirmed my fears. They were too accepting of him being gone and now I know why. I did learn through the grapevine, Mil and Phil, that he is already remarried and has another kid on the way. Mil told me they got a baby shower and wedding invite in the mail. Honestly, I feel bad for the new wife. The kids are truly just wonderful. Still in therapy, but the therapist has nothing but positive things to say after their sessions now. She did mention that my oldest brought up calling Jake dad, but I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. Jake has made it clear that once, yes he said once, not if, but once, we're married he fully intends to adopt the kids, but that is another conversation for another day, haha. I don't want to deter her from having a bond with him, but it still feels too soon, you know. My middle child seems to have forgotten Tyler completely and is my usual ray of sunshine. I've seriously never met a happier kid. The baby is babbling away, smiling and laughing now. Can y'all believe it? I'm truly blessed with such wonderful kids. Jake. Well, Jake is Jake, you know how that goes. Haha. No, seriously, I have never felt such happiness before. He was genuinely concerned at how many people were commenting asking if we were still together and told me you better update right now and tell them we're still together. I wish you guys could hear just how funny he truly is. I officially allowed him to give me the title of girlfriend, though he says I've been his girlfriend practically this whole time, haha. He has been sleeping over essentially every night. He says it's under the guise of being worried Jess might show back up, but secretly I think it's because he hates being away from the kids. Whenever he's at work or anywhere that isn't my house, he will text whoever is with the kids asking for picture updates of them and expresses how much he misses them. It's actually really sweet. He's been allowing me to set the pace still, just also helping give me a nudge when I need it. He's attended a few of my therapy sessions with me to help get a better understanding of what I need from him in terms of this relationship. Jake is honestly just everything I could have asked for. I'm lucky to love him. Update 9. I'm making this one quick and easy since it's the first break I've had from life and a busy schedule in weeks. I had my restraining order court date. If you're confused, read my last update. And while I didn't get approved for a permanent restraining order, I did obtain a 7-year one. Apparently in my state it's really hard to get a permanent restraining order unless I have tangible proof it's life or death. Everything I had on Jess wasn't enough for permanent, however I am still content with this outcome. If she happens to still be a bother during or after the 7-year RO, I can take her back to court / have her arrested. With that being said, I think I'm letting the talks questions about Jess die here. I love relating to every aspect of my life, however I don't want her to try to use anything I say about her, even if it's under a false name and protected identity, to say that I've been breaking the RO. Jake, the kids and I decided that since he spends so much time at my house and his place is essentially a storage unit that he would be moving in. And before anyone has anything to say about it being too fast, please know I have known Jake my entire life. That's not exaggerating? I've literally known him my entire life. I am comfortable and confident in this choice. Tyler is still a ghost and still has made 0 contact attempts. The kids are beautiful, loved and thriving. Sorry for it being so short and sweet, but life has been kicking my ass between sleep regression, lawyer meetings, court, work, and my older 2 extracurricular activities. We live with my wife's friend after her abusive relationship. Recently, I've noticed that she's intentionally trying to get close to me. I, 33, have been married to my wife, 31, for 6 years and we have a 3-year-old kid. We are very happy together and I am lucky to be married to a very kind and smart woman. My wife's best friend Anna, fake name for anonymity, has been living with us for the last 6 months. I wanted to talk about Anna to give a full context of why I'm making my decision. Anna has been my wife's best friend since school days. Anna was living in the city with her boyfriend, and we live in the suburbs of that city. They seemed happy together and were in a relationship for 2 years. However, my wife noticed bruises on Anna's hand last year and asked her about it. Initially, Anna dismissed it as work-related injuries. My wife kept on probing, and we learned that Anna was in an extremely toxic and abusive relationship. Her boyfriend lost his job last year and became extremely controlling and abusive towards her. He constantly accused her of cheating. Anna denies it, made her link her phone messenger to his computer and started micromanaging finances. There was an incident of domestic violence that was the final straw in my wife, and I had to rush to the hospital to look after Anna. Since Anna's parents are mostly absent from her life, my wife asked me if Anna can stay with us for a few days. We are 3 people living in a 4-bedroom house and have 2 spare guest rooms. I of course agreed to it and told her that Anna can stay with us as long as she wants. I think the incident completely broke Anna and she would just start crying randomly and completely shut down. It was really sad to see Anna in that state. She had to leave her job due to mental issues and stayed at home in the room all day. My wife is very kind and took care of Anna like she was family and made sure she felt loved. Anna is also thankful to my wife and I to help her in her worst time, and helps around the house and with our kid, though we never leave him alone with Anna. Anna, now is coming back to normal, smiles sometimes and has started looking for a job again. Now on to the incident. Last Friday, my wife and I went to work as normal and dropped our son at daycare. I had a doctor's appointment at noon and came straight home from there as I did not have a lot of work in the office. I made some lunch, and then went to my room to sit in my bed and reply to all the emails. Anna was in her room, and I did not talk to her after I came home. Around 2 p.m., I heard Anna's room door open and her walking in the hallway. Suddenly, our bedroom door opened and Anna walked in topless and just in her underwear. I was shocked and not sure how long I was staring at her. But after a few seconds I blurted out, "I am sorry." And she quickly covered herself with her hands. She was apologetic and started explaining herself. She said she just wanted to borrow my wife's clothes because her laundry was unwashed. It was super embarrassing to have a conversation with her in that state and I looked away. She again apologized and then went out of the bedroom. The incident lasted less than 2 minutes. After a while, she again came back into our bedroom, fully dressed, and apologized for the incident. She said it was really embarrassing and she did not know anyone would be home. I said it's okay and I should have told her I was back early from the office when I came home. She asked me to not mention the incident to my wife. She said she felt embarrassed when she walked around the hallway without clothes and that I saw her in that state. I said it's okay and let's forget about it. I have not told my wife about the incident and it's been 5 days. It was just a benign incident, but I somehow feel guilty about the whole thing. I feel more guilty that I am lying to my wife by omission of the truth. However, I feel that if my wife takes it the wrong way, it may strain her relationship with Anna, and I really feel bad for Anna for what she had to go through. I also do not want to make Anna uncomfortable in our house by telling my wife about her barging into our bedroom in that state. Am I the AH in this case for not talking about this incident to my wife? I am afraid that if Anna tells it to her first, it will make me look really bad and guilty. However, if I tell her, I do not want her to blame Anna for any of this and not help her in time of her need. Can someone please help me on how I can tell my wife about this? Relevant comments. Multiple Redditors advised OP to talk with his wife and not keep it as a secret from her if the incident was really bothering him. OP's reply. Thanks. This is really helpful. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but I have read that in these situations, the victim's trust in men is very fragile. Would it be horrible if I told my wife after I told Anna I would not mention this incident? Should I talk about this with Anna first? Comment 1. You would be the asshole if you do not tell your wife. Never keep secrets as a team with your house guest against your wife. Comment 2. Anna needs to tell her PDQ. She also needs to stay out of your bedroom. Do not keep the secret, that's what will destroy your relationship. I'll try to give Anna a pass, but some small part of me thinks she knows what she's doing, and asking you to keep it a secret is part of that. Update 1. I wrote a post yesterday about an embarrassing situation that happened between my wife's best friend who is currently staying at our house. I was not sure how to bring it up to my wife, and you guys really helped me a lot in understanding the urgency of telling my wife. I also got some cool ideas on how to bring up the subject without making it awkward for anyone. For everyone saying Anna was doing it on purpose, I did not agree with it, as I'm an extremely average-looking person and women don't chase me. However, things since last night have been just crazy and I think I'm spiraling a bit. Sorry for the long post. So I decided to tell my wife last night as soon as she came home about the incident. I like the idea of jokingly bringing up casually so that we both can laugh about it and then forget it. Last night, when my wife came home, I made sure I stayed in our bedroom. I asked Anna if she could stay with my kid downstairs. As my wife was changing, I asked her if Anna still borrowed her clothes. Anna had to borrow them regularly when she first moved, long story. My wife told me yes, and she has told Anna she can take anything from her closet if she needs it. I asked my wife if Anna told her about the funny incident from Friday. My wife said no, and I told her the whole story about how I came home early, and Anna came in the room almost naked to get her clothes, and how embarrassing it was for both of us. As my wife was listening to this, she completely froze and turned pale. She started murmuring in Spanish, which is her and Anna's native language. I don't understand Spanish really well, but I understood the words hombre casado and otra vez. I asked her if she is okay, and she sat next to me and asked me to explain everything in detail. I just told her it was nothing and she must have not heard me coming in. I was trying to laugh it off, but my wife had water in her eyes. I kept on telling her it was not a big deal, but she kept on asking me for more details. She asked me how Anna talks to me. I told her that Anna barely talks to me since she moved in, except few words here and there. My wife then asked me about 3 weeks ago when my wife had gone to visit her parents for 4 days. Anna did not want to go with her and stayed back. I told her that Anna was just acting normal. She or I would cook dinner after I got home from work while the other took care of the kid. The only thing different was Anna generally spending her evening in her room. However, when I was sitting in the living room watching TV after the kids slept, Anna came and sat on the sofa next to me but did not talk to me. I asked her if she wanted me to change the channel or stream to something she likes, and she just said she wanted to get out of her room. However, she did not flirt with me or do anything unusual. I kept on telling my wife that it was just an accident, and I really did not understand why she reacted so emotionally to it. My wife refused to answer and just said okay and agreed with me. However, she told me I should have told her about the incident sooner and should not keep any secrets from her, and gave me a big lecture. I told her that I did not think it was a big deal and thought Anna would tell her, but glad I brought it up. After dinner, my wife massaged Anna to join us, and she came out. While talking, my wife brought up the incident and told Anna that I mentioned about the incident and she does not need to feel embarrassed. Such things happen when we are all in the same house and it is not a big deal. Anna was firstly taken by surprise, but then told my wife she was just scared to tell her because she thought my wife would judge her because of her past. My wife gave her a stare and she quickly changed the topic. At night, I asked my wife what the hell was going on. I told her to please not keep any secrets from me, and if she does not tell me, I will directly ask Anna about what her past has got to do with anything. My first guess was Anna might have had a thing for me before we got married or something. But my wife was very reluctant to answer and kept on trying to change the subject and cuddle. However, I kept being persistent and she finally spilled the beans. Apparently, when Anna was in her early 20s, she was in a relationship with a married coworker who was twice her age. It was a kind of sugar daddy relationship, and he told her that he was in an open relationship, or that's what Anna told my wife, and he would leave his wife in a few years once the kids go to college. This makes sense now, because Anna is very pretty, like Miss USA level, and I never understood why she was single for most of the time I knew her. She eventually ended that relationship and started dating her boyfriend Jim, who turned out to be an abusive asshole. My wife said she suspects Anna was still involved with the older guy while in relationship with Jim, which explains why he kept on accusing her of cheating. That is why my wife became emotional when I told her what Anna did, because she was worried Anna has no boundaries regarding married men. My wife said that Anna always looks up to us and praises me for being such a loyal partner and how lucky my wife is. My wife was worried initially when she brought Anna home, but her actions from the time when my wife was away clearly show that she respects the boundaries, and it must have been an accident. My wife told me she is grateful I let Anna live in our house and observe what a healthy and happy marriage looks like. This morning was even more weird. I got up early as I could not sleep well and went down for a cup of coffee. After 5 minutes, Anna walked into the kitchen and told me she was relieved my wife did not overreact to Friday's incident. She said I am a good husband and gave me a hug and peck on the cheeks. She has never hugged me in the last 6 months. She seemed to be in a happy mood and was making small talk with me while having coffee. I cannot believe my wife did not tell me such a huge detail about Anna for all these years. It's completely possible she cheated all through the relationship with Jim, and my wife is just covering for her all along. She even kept it a secret from me, after giving me a lecture about how we should never have secrets. And I don't know what else she is hiding. Everything just seems very confusing at this point. I feel angry at my wife for lying to me all these years for Anna. I also now see Anna differently. I am also worried that me trivializing the incident to my wife might have sent wrong signals to Anna. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Anna needs to go before her own messed up issues lead her to further mess with your marriage. She was testing OP again with the hug and kiss on the cheek, and I didn't see OP writing that he told his wife about that new development. She's gotta go before she pushes to the next level. OP's reply, yes. I am also a bit mad at myself for trying to casually describe the event as some of the Redditors advised and not talk about the fact that she was in the room for a lot longer. I was worried that my wife would be pissed at me. Now I wish I told her all the details and did not make it sound trivial. My wife now trusts Anna and I am getting more uncomfortable. Multiple Redditors urge her OP to tell his wife about the hug and kiss. OP's reply. I agree with the hug and kiss part here. It is not uncommon for my wife's friends to kiss me on the cheek when they meet me. I am not from that culture, and initially it used to make me uncomfortable. But something about today morning with Anna waking up so early, coming down in her bedclothes and sitting with me rubbed me the wrong way. I am not able to point out exactly what, but she was acting differently. For lack of a better word, she looked happy for the first time since she moved into our place. I have not told my wife yet. Things have been a bit icy between us since yesterday, as I am still upset at her for keeping secrets from me for all these years. I know it's Anna's personal life, but I feel a bit betrayed that for all these years, she knew Anna was with a married man and never even mentioned it to me. We had a talk in the evening and she apologized, but then we both dropped the subject and took our son to the playground as the weather was finally nice and had an amazing time. However, I plan to tell her as soon as we both are alone at night. As I said in the comments, I do not think she will mind, since it's not uncommon for her friends to give a quick peck on cheeks when saying hello. In fact, I was not comfortable with it at the start, and now I am used to it. Her mom, cousins, friends, everyone kisses me. There are also weird rules, where married women like my wife just hug, but non-married friends give a kiss, unless you're family. Also, only girls give a kiss, but men don't kiss girls on cheeks. I learned that the hard way. I am not Latino, Colombian to be exact, and maybe someone who is familiar can explain the rules here so people who don't know the tradition won't misinterpret it as anything sexual. Also, I never keep anything from my wife, and hence I felt so guilty about my actions over the last week. I am sure I will mention it to her before the end of the day. Update 2. I wrote a few posts a month ago regarding my wife's friend Anna accidentally walking into our bedroom topless to get my wife's clothes while I was in the room. We addressed the issue the next day, but I learned more about Anna's past and why my wife was uncomfortable due to the situation. My wife and I talked to Anna and told her it was not a big deal, and we all decided to move on from the incident. After I posted the update, a lot of you advised me to tell my wife about Anna hugging and kissing me, on the cheek, the following morning. I felt uncomfortable with this situation and the comments really made me nervous. Most of you were reading my post as a telenovela or the start of a porn movie, and the comments were really not helping calm me down. You may not like this part, but I just decided to get off Reddit for a while and try to think through the situation on how to tell my wife. I felt that my wife treats Anna as family and just like her sisters. I have known my wife's sisters since they were in their early teens. I have had similar incidents happen with them all the time, and I never made a big deal out of it. There were so many times we had to tell them to keep their tops on when sitting in our backyard pool area when they were younger, and God knows how allergic they are to wearing pants around the house. However, I just treat them as they are my sisters. I decided I need to do the same with Anna and treat her like my wife's sisters. I also wanted to communicate that clearly to both Anna and my wife so they don't get in such uncomfortable situations anymore. That night, I was talking to my wife and decided to put a positive spin on the incident that happened early in the morning. I asked my wife if she noticed anything different with Anna. I told her that she woke up early with me today and greeted me with a hug and kiss and also helped me make breakfast. I told her that I am glad she finally looks happy and is returning back to her old self and how proud I am of my wife that she is such a kind-hearted person who helped a friend in need. My wife seemed happy with my comment and started saying that she also noticed Anna was chattier in the morning and was cleaning her room and talking about applying for jobs again. I told my wife that I feel Anna is like one of her sisters and I'm happy she also considers us as family and is comfortable around us. The next few weeks were great. Anna started waking up early in the morning around the time I woke up, 5 a.m. We always had coffee together and had nice chats. She also helped me with breakfast and getting lunch boxes ready. She asked me if she can join my gym and if I can teach her some resistance training exercises. Her therapist told her it would be good for her to work out. So, we started going to the gym 3-4 times a week in the evening before picking my son from daycare. It's nice to have a regular gym partner and someone to geek out about the daily protein intake. I also told her when we were cooking that she is so much less annoying than my Sills and I wish she was my Sill. She just smiled at the comment. Anna has already had a few interviews and also contacted her old job who seem interested in hiring her back. She told us 2 weeks ago that she will be looking for apartments. We already saw 2 apartments in our suburb and hopefully should finalize that soon. My wife jokingly told her that her dating prospects are going to be bleak if she stays in our suburb, but Anna told us that she is going to stay away from relationships at least for a while now and work on herself. Plus, she enjoys our gym and loves spending time with our son. About the hugging and kissing, I think I have decoded it. A hug from Anna is normal and I get one every morning. However, I think she kisses people on the cheeks as a way to say thank you. Things are really looking positive for Anna and we are very happy that she was able to get through a bad patch in her life. She had isolated herself from everyone after the incident 7 months ago. However, she plans to join my wife and son on her summer trip to my in-laws in a few weeks, unless there are any updates on the employment front. I just hope for the best for her and am glad that I did not make a big deal out of the situation. I am also glad to have such a kind and understanding wife who is there for her friend in need. Relevant comments. Comment 1. If this works out for you guys, that's great. For me it's such a huge red flag. That she wakes up same time as you, joined the same gym as you and wants to spend a lot of time with you plus is looking at places to rent near you. Maybe it's because I've seen too many stories like that end in a horrible way. Again, if it works out for you guys it's great, to me it's one red flag after another and seems like a start of something fishy. Comment 2, I felt uncomfortable reading how much she's inserted herself in your life. There's still red flags waving and you're either stupidly oblivious or you're enjoying the attention that you choose to be oblivious to. Comment 3. You honestly still don't see it, do you? Waking up early at the same time as you, going to the gym with you and cooking with you. She's spending an awful lot of time with you. And the difference is she isn't one of your SILs but your wife's friend. A friend that has a past going after married men. You sound naive to not at least put down some fucking boundaries with her. I don't even get why you won't do that. It's so stupid. On every post people kept warning you and you refused to listen. I hope for your wife's sake, that Anna doesn't try anything. But remember that if she does and your marriage dies because of it, you and your unwillingness to handle it, will be the sole fucking reason. Comment 4. Oh sure, this is going to end well. We won't do the immediate attack head on because he won't fall for that. So we do the slow build. A little bit here, a little more there. As soon as she gets her own place, things are going to change. I don't understand how people cannot see what is happening in front of their eyes. Poor dude is going to be in her bed and wondering what happened. Comment 5. I have no dog in this fight and I'm wildly uncomfortable with how much Anna has inserted herself into your life and your daily routine and how you have let her do so. It does not come across as innocent, she has no reason to hug or kiss you ever. Why is the apartment hunting a wee thing? Why are you talking down about your wife's relatives to this person? Why are you spending so much of your time every day with this woman? You are having an emotional affair with this woman. And it is not going to take much for it to turn physical and you will be back here saying you have no idea how this happened. You need to get back to doing these things with your wife, and this woman needs to not be part of your life or you will be very sorry in the end. She knows exactly what she's doing and she is playing the long game. Oh. And now reading previous posts I see Anna has gone after married men before. OMG. You really can't be this clueless. Am I the A for getting upset with my wife for secretly having an abortion after I clearly stated I didn't want children? I have been happily married to my wife, Clara, for around 3 years now. I love this woman to pieces. I don't want to get sentimental, but she truly is my other half and I cannot see myself with another woman, even now. Before we got married, I made my stance on children clear. I didn't want any. She agreed at the moment and I thought that was that. About 1.5 years into our marriage, she brings up the question of children again. She asks me if I want kids. I say no, I don't. She hums and we go back to doing what we did before. It wasn't a conversation so much as it was an odd question this time around, but I didn't think anything of it. We had a very robust sex life but always took the necessary precautions. She has the implant and I use a condom around 90% of the time, so I wasn't worried. Her bookshelf recently broke, so I ordered a new one. I had wanted to build it as a surprise and put her books up on it for when she came home. While going through them, I noticed an old journal of hers. I immediately smiled and flipped through it. When we were in college, she'd carry it around. It was a future planning notebook or sorts. If she wanted something in life, she'd draw out exactly what she envisioned, add clip-ins, the whole 9 yards. Manifestation, if you will. She had shown me it in college after declaring that she wanted to pursue her doctorate, and I remember being stunned at the attention to detail. I mean, we were only sophomores and she knew exactly what she wanted to do, what she wanted to study and where she would take herself. It made me feel out of depth. I liked it. Anyway, I flipped through the journal, reminiscing about the past. I hadn't expected there to be any new entries, at least not anything recent that I hadn't experienced with her. But as I opened it up, I saw something I never thought I'd see. It was a section dedicated to pregnancy and baby prep. She had researched prenatal vitamins, OB-GYNs in our area, had images of cradles, etc. It was only 2 pages, but I remember feeling so sick. In my head, there was only one reason she'd put that in a journal like this. She wanted kids. Naturally, I was torn up. I kept telling myself I'd been upfront about what I wanted and if she hadn't, that was her fault. But the thought that she'd secretly been suffering because of me, that she was holding herself back from the life she wanted to please me, I couldn't stand it. I confronted her about it as soon as we came home and I found out the situation was a lot worse than I thought. Clara did indeed want kids, but claimed she wanted our relationship more and was okay with compromise. I asked her 1,000,000 times if she was sure. I really wanted her to be honest and not feel like she had to hold anything back. She insisted that not having children wasn't a deal breaker for her, but I kept pushing. I couldn't understand why she'd put something that wasn't that important to her in that journal. In the midst of our conversation, she dropped the bomb. She told me she had an abortion 1.5 years ago. Offered up the information like I should have been relieved. Like it was the proof she needed to convince me that she meant what she had said about children not being a deal breaker. I can't describe what I felt at that moment. What I'm still feeling. What I can say is that I have never blown up at my wife the way I did that night. I didn't put my hands on her. I would never put my hands on her, but it was not a pretty exchange. I just remember feeling hurt that she hadn't consulted me on such an important decision. That she went and had such a life-altering procedure without discussing it with me. That I didn't even fucking notice that it happened. I mean, those things have side effects, right? She would have been bedridden for days afterwards, in physical and emotional pain. How could I not have seen the signs? I'm still beating myself up about it. I remember her asking me if I wanted kids, but nothing about her emotional state for the rest of that week when she would have had the procedure done. How much can I really claim to care about her? I don't want children, I still don't. But I'd rather chew my left arm off than make her have an abortion, even more so now after she's told me she isn't really against having kids the way I am. I'd happily raise a kid if it meant she didn't need to go through something so drastic. I've been staying with my sister for the last 1.5 weeks. I needed space to think, so I left. I want to see her, to ask if she's okay, but I don't know what to do or say. I'm still unbelievably angry at her and at myself. I don't want to yell at her again. I think the first time around scared her pretty badly and I don't want to repeat that. My sister thinks I'm being petty, punishing my wife for something I would have agreed with regardless. But I wouldn't have fucking agreed. I don't know. Relevant comments. OP on not considering of prioritizing his wife's preferences when she is prioritizing his decisions. Comment 1. OP. To clarify, I never once said this. If that's how my post came across, let me clear it up. If she came to me as asked to start trying for a kid, in other words, to go off birth control and stop using condoms, my answer would be no. I've always been firm in that. She's never pushed the issue, but no amount of begging would entice me to plan to have a child. Having an unplanned child, on the other hand, wasn't something we discussed. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20, but that doesn't help much here. Update. I woke up to lots amount of comments and outright hate, so I thought I'd clear a few things up. A lot of you were concerned about me snoping in Clara's journal. I met this woman when I was 6 years old. We had experienced over half of what she had written down in that notebook together. She's been letting me read her entries routinely since college, though I would read them more often back then. Like I said, I found her decisiveness incredibly attractive. But college was 6-7 years ago and times have changed. I'm not sure if she has other journals, but her use of this specific one died down as we got older, and so did my readership. I felt no qualms about picking it up and reading it that day because I quite frankly never have. This was not the first time I read that journal without her present, as I've been given express permission to do so. It was meant to be a quick trip down memory lane. I had no idea she had added more things, let alone pregnancy planning. She keeps all her old journals, sketchbooks, etc., in the same area, and this book was in that pile. You should have gotten a vasectomy. I'm not discussing my reasons for not wanting kids here, but I did discuss them thoroughly with Clara before we got married. Our reasons for not wanting children were very similar based on that initial conversation, but I guess hers wavered as time went on. How that turned me into an evil dictator that refused to hear her opinions out, I'll never understand. But I guess that's Reddit for you? I didn't get a vasectomy because I'm not sure that I won't want kids 10-15 years down the line. I am positive I don't want them at the current moment, but I'm 27. Opinions and circumstances change. Regardless of its reversibility, it's marketed as a permanent surgery. Vasectomies are covered by my health insurance, but reversals are not. It simply made no sense to invest in something I wasn't sure could be undone if I didn't want it anymore, not when Clara and I were taking the necessary precautions to avoid pregnancy otherwise. She got on birth control way before we started having sex. I had absolutely nothing to do with that decision. As far as I know, she's quite happy with it. The chances of pregnancy with the implant are less than 1%, even less when using condoms as well. We talked about the decision together and ultimately decided a vasectomy wasn't the right choice. Someone actually went as far as to say that because I didn't get my vas deferens cinched, an unexpected pregnancy was inevitable. A 0.5% chance and inevitable are two vastly different things. You guys do realize that vasectomies aren't 100% effective either, right? Unless you're pushing for abstinence, I really don't want to hear it. We also don't go raw unless we both agree to it, which I would never pressure her to do. You verbally abused her. Clara and I both grew up in shitty homes. Our parents yelled and were extremely combative. After growing up in that environment, we agreed to avoid that kind of behavior in our relationship, and we do our best to keep to that. I have never raised my voice at her before this argument. I'm more on the timid side, so I imagine it was a shock for her to see me so angry. She also just doesn't do well with yelling in general. It wasn't my words, so much as it was my tone. Should I have raised my voice? No, but I'm not an infallible robot. My comment about not putting my hands on her was to draw conclusions away from physical violence. Clearly it wasn't taken that way and had the opposite effect. The exchange was heated on both sides, lots of things were said. It was the worst disagreement we have ever had, and we have been together for close to a decade, close friends for even longer. That being said, I still think it was on the tamer side of the overall spectrum, relative to other people. That spectrum might be a bit skewed due to my childhood, but take that as you will. You're a dick for leaving her for a week and a half. To be fully clear, this was a mutually respected decision. I told her I needed space to think. She suggested I take it outside the house. Granted, she wasn't the happiest when she said it, but we had just finished a heated argument. We texted the entire time I was at my sister's place. Very dull and mundane conversation, mostly pleasantries, but I didn't just abandon her. We weren't speaking audibly, but we weren't in contact. I don't know how else to phrase that. Things were just tense and very different from our usual level of interaction. Everything was surface level. We would check to make sure the other ate, showered, whatever else, but that was it. There was no continuation of our discussion while we were apart. We were both taking the time to make sure we were in the right headspace to have a proper conversation, as is common for our relationship. It just took me a bit longer to get there. She wouldn't have been bedridden. Abortions aren't that deep. I'll concede to the physical aspect of this. I've often heard them described as a bad period, and a lot of the women in my life tend to tap out during their monthlies, which is what I based my assumption on. I accept that it was incorrect. Though I'm not sure if I should, because half of you agreed with my take in the post, condemning me for not noticing, and the other half told me I was overreacting. Again, I guess that's Reddit for you. More importantly, I will not agree on the general take on the emotional aspect. At the time, I still did not believe Clara genuinely wanted to have an abortion after hearing her updated stance on having kids. I imagined her feelings would be on par with someone who experienced a miscarriage rather than an abortion because of this. I still do. The only thing that would change my mind at this point is Clara herself. You should go to couples counseling and seek therapy individually. We are both in different types of talk therapy and have been for several years. I'm not sure how helpful couples therapy would be on top of that, but I'm not opposed to it. Asking if you wanted kids was enough, she doesn't owe you anything. Reading through the comments, many of you thought this, and we're simply going to have to disagree. As the father of the child, the decision to abort should not have been made without my clear and explicit knowledge that she was pregnant. We weren't separated at the time, nor did I cheat, and contrary to popular belief, I'm not abusive. I deserve to know. I won't apologize for expecting my wife to consult me on family planning decisions. I'd do the same for her 10 times over if roles were reversed. Call it controlling. I really don't care. Asking if I want kids is a completely different discussion than terminating a pregnancy. I am on my way home now and will update if the situation changes, likely sometime this week. I'd ask for well wishes, but I think it's clear none of you are rooting in my favor. Fucking hell. Edit. Took out the numbers to prevent text from looking long and blocky. Final update. Before I got into where Clara and I are now, a lot of you had some misconceptions concerning things like me reading Clara's journal, vasectomies, and other things. I made a separate post addressing those. Read it, don't, whatever. I came home the morning following my initial post and Clara and I had a very long conversation. We both apologized for letting the previous conversation get out of hand and acting out of character. I also explained why I left in the first place and apologized for raising my voice. She's especially sensitive to that kind of thing, so I addressed it first. She forgave me and said as long as we could keep things calm this time around it would be okay. She was more interested in finding out what I was so deep in thought about that I was gone for so long. Again, we do take breaks from conflicts from time to time and revisit them when we're calmer, though this was the first one where I physically removed myself from her proximity. I told her how I initially felt after reading her journal entry. I hadn't been mad then. Part of me was confused. We had agreed on no kids before getting married after all. The other half was riddled with anxiety. Contrary to what you may all think, I adore Clara. She is quite honestly one of only good things this life has given me. I didn't want to lose her, but if she wanted kids badly enough to put them in her journal, I wasn't sure what that would mean for us. She downplayed the importance of the entry. In her view, not everything she puts into the journal is something she's genuinely hoping for. Some things are just nice to fantasize about, and not every fantasy is meant to be reality. I was honest. I told her that her words were hard to believe given how meticulously she had written everything down and planned it out. The last thing I wanted was for her to harbor resentment over what her life could have been. She assured me that wasn't the case, but I'm still unsure. Talking about the abortion itself was hard on both of us. I wanted to know if she was in pain, what signs I had missed. I didn't really press for details on the procedure, but we talked a lot about how she felt afterwards, why she hid it and how she came to her decision. I just held her in my arms and listened for the most part. It was gut-wrenching to say the least. It turns out that the second time she had asked if I wanted kids occurred a month or two after she had already had the procedure done. She had asked because she was contemplating whether or not to tell me about it. I guess she had ultimately decided not to. She told me I was actually with her the day she took the pills. I remembered the day because she had been crying and I wasn't sure why. When I asked, she cited cramps, so I got her a heating pad and laid down with her. Her periods have always been pretty hard on her, so I guess I didn't think much of it. In hindsight, I should have realized something was up because she hasn't had bad cramps in years. Still, I'm glad she didn't go through it completely alone. Much later that day, I asked her why she didn't come to me when she realized she was pregnant. In her eyes, she was protecting our relationship. She knows our circumstances, my reasons for not wanting kids, my stance on abortion. She didn't want to burden me with having to choose between the two, and so she made the choice herself. As hard as I try, I can't understand or accept her reasoning. Her decision to go through this alone, while meant to shield me, inadvertently communicated that she doesn't trust me to support her or handle the truth. All I understood is that she feels like she can't lean on me when she's in trouble. And if that's the case, I'm not sure why we're married. She's always been independent, but this is the first time I've felt completely blindsided by not being included. I asked up and down if I'd given her a reason to doubt me, to doubt my commitment to her, if she felt I wasn't a reliable partner, etc. She said no, but that just makes all this harder to grasp. She said she was afraid saying anything would change how I viewed her, our relationship, but I'm having a hard time distinguishing insecurity, anxiety from reasonable doubt. I asked her if she knew I loved her, how much I care for her, the lengths I would go to make her happy, etc. She laughed a little and reminded me of a line from my wedding vows. We shared private vows before our ceremony and I had said quite a bit. I was a little shocked that she remembered that portion at all, let alone word for word. We transitioned to talking about the promises we made to one another, and just times in our relationship where we had complete faith in one another. It helped put us both in better moods and ended the night on a lighter note for both of us. We're doing okay at the moment. Not quite where we were before, but getting there. Everything's still incredibly raw, including our eyes. We both broke down 5 minutes into the conversation. Clara is against couples counseling right now. I'm ambivalent, as we're still working a couple of things out on our own. I'm not sure how helpful a third party asking what steps we're willing to take to improve trust and transparency will really be, but I'm open to anything at this point. We're not leaving one another. Issues or not, we both think it's clear that there's still an abundance of love between us, and we don't want to throw that away. Some of you will be happy to know that Clara and I decided on a new rule for ourselves. Clara was a lot more upset about my leaving than she initially let on. From now on, the distance between the top and bottom floors of our home is all the space either of us are allowed to take. We need to cool our heads. If proximity really does become an issue, the max either of us are allowed to stay outside the house is 48 hours. So no more week-long stays at my sister's. My wife has ADHD, neglects our kids, and humiliated me on Father's Day. After much consideration, I've decided to pursue a divorce. I, 43 years old, try to do my best to provide for my wife, 38 years old, and our 2 kids, ages 3 and 5, as well as my mother-in-law. I like to think that I am doing a decent job. Over the years, I have worked to improve our family's living situation. Not only did I complete another bachelor's degree and recently a master's in a STEM-related field, but I also worked 2 full-time jobs while finishing my second bachelor's degree and supported my wife through her schooling as well. She completed a degree that allows her to make good money, $60-70K/year, in a healthcare field that always has jobs available. However, with the birth of our 2 children, she has since given up on her career to be a stay-at-home mom for the time being. At first, it was a struggle while I was finishing up my master's degree. Once I completed it, after our youngest turned 3, my career took a jump, and we are now able to afford our single-income household in a more feasible manner. We're far from rich but do okay for a single-income family of 4, a little over $150K base plus bonuses. This past year, life has been overwhelming for my wife, so even though I now work 75% from home, I budgeted to hire a daytime nanny to help her around the house with one child while the other is now in school. Every day, my day starts around 5:30 to 6 a.m. I prepare the house for the day before the nanny arrives at 8 a.m. I get our oldest child up and ready for school, make breakfast, plan out my day, drop our oldest off at school, and return home in time to let the nanny in. My current task at work has me grounded for the next 2 months, meaning I am now 100% working from home. While this is nice, I am busy in meetings all day as my role involves managing teams on a global scale and overseeing industry projects. For the past month and a half, I have noticed that despite my wife claiming her life at home is stressful, her day starts at 10 a.m. After a week of working from home, I asked my mother-in-law and the nanny if this was always the case, and they both responded that it varies, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. My wife literally wakes up, cooks, and then spends time scrolling through her phone or shopping online, which brings me to my concern. I am glad I can provide her with this lifestyle since we both grew up with limited means. I understand the possibility of postpartum depression, the stress of having kids, the feeling of being unfulfilled, and the fact that I may not be the best husband. But for what it's worth, everything is taken care of and then some. I manage the household finances, since she claimed she was too busy to do so. Pay all the household bills, cover my personal bills, pay her bills, track and perform all the upkeep of our house appliances, cars, pets, etc. And I also help pay for my mother-in-law's medical bills and car note. Despite this, my life is apparently much easier compared to hers. I can't decompress with her because she always feels the need to one-up me. If I have a bad day, She insists hers was worse because I'm lucky to go away and work. If my feet hurt from walking all day during work travel, she says it's nothing compared to her standing and cooking with a child clinging to her. For the past 2 years, I've been told I ruined her life and her opportunities. But when I remind her of what she says, she denies and dodges accountability. My mother-in-law has noticed a change in both me and my wife, pointing out that I have a greater attachment to my kids and that I've even hugged the dogs and talked to them more about my life than to my wife. I honestly feel like I'm in emotional survival mode. I am one step away from moving up the career ladder and one step away from finding love and comfort at the bottom of a whiskey bottle. I am sure I will be hearing from the manly men of Reddit about how I am simping. But I am not a machine. I just want to know and feel that someone I prioritize aside from my kids appreciates and loves me for what I do. I am sure I will hear from the stay-at-home moms of Reddit. Which is fine. I grew up in a single parent/mother household. It is not easy. And honestly, with the help of her mother and a nanny Monday to Friday, for one toddler while another child is at school, can you honestly tell me she is having the typical stay-at-home mom experience? Because neither my friends nor colleagues who are single parents can say she is. I am sure the masses of holier-than-thou Redditors will consider this a poorly written fanfic, but it is what it is. To summarize, TLDR. It feels as if my wife has checked out of our marriage. We are only roommates where she can still reap the benefits of marriage. I am not asking for her to throw herself at me all the time and let me do whatever I want. I really just want to be told I am doing good and to offer me some form of emotional comfort as simple as a hug, but I guess as the man who ruined her life, I deserve it. Thank you for the replies. To add more context, never cheated. I do work in an industry that has a large female population, but I am literally an open book with work, name colleagues and staff under me. She has access to my work agendas and correspondence if she really wanted to snoop, but on that note, she still does not know what exactly I do for a living at this time. We as a whole family, her parents and mine have tried to get her to go to therapy but she refuses or skirts around the issue. Aside from my coming from a single mother household, my biological dad was present in my life. She has had both parents in a reportedly monogamous marriage for over 40 years. I have tried to talk to her about everything and my own feelings but again, one-upmanship tends to be the trend here. What I am receiving from the marriage was asked. Now, aside from my 2 beautiful kids, I've been asking myself that same question. We have a near non-existent sex life mainly since last year. I always figured maybe it's part of depression or whatever she may be going through. Maybe I'm just not attractive enough or just horrible in bed because of my health conditions. I'm not some supermodel husband but temptation and opportunity does knock and I can perform still but I never give in, because as cliche as it sounds I honestly do love my wife and want to only be with her. I'll give credit where credit is due as I don't want to sound biased. When I say she wakes up and cooks, she cooks for everyone in the house. Myself, kids, MIL, and even nanny. Aside from breakfast she cooks all meals and snacks. I typically fast until lunchtime and our oldest tends to eat a small simple breakfast in case they don't like what school serves that morning. She does load both the kids and her laundry, but seldomly folds and puts them up. I typically do my own and the rest of my clothes I dry clean because they're work clothes. She does keep track of our pantry and fridge. But after she makes the list I'm the one who goes out and buys everything if not delivered. She does clean our bathrooms and house 50% of the time, the other 50% is done by either MIL or myself or sometimes nanny if she feels like being extra helpful. Prior to nanny, my MIL was the main help for my wife up until she had unexpected medical needs. So I opted to hire a nanny to help them both, more so when MIL is having treatments and recovering. Update, not sure if anyone would read this, but thank you for those who have reached out and chit-chatted. While I know I've kept my newfound friends here updated, I figured I'd just update my post and keep it short. I showed my wife my post the following weekend and she read it and all the comments. Long story short, argument, she left our house to stay with her sister, and I've been a single parent since. It's sad to say, aside from the good nights to our kids, it's all pretty much the same routine. Nothing much else to say other than thank you for all the kind words of encouragement. I just need to add, this post got bigger than I expected from a venting post but I've responded to a few comments. Nonetheless, thank you for the comments and DMs. And more so for the offers to let me ruin your life, huh? It's been the highlight of my day/night as I sit here drinking with my dog while everyone else is asleep. It feels depressingly sad that I feel that I have to turn to random internet strangers for some sort of validation in my rant. My apologies in advance as I try to keep this as vague as possible. I just wanted to update those who have been kind enough to check up via DM and comments. Apologies in advance for the lengthy post. It's a bit of irony and coincidence that I made a follow-up from the update on 06 May 2024 I made on my original post during Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, but I could really use another outlet outside of my therapist. My apologies if this isn't the storybook ending / destroying of a relationship people were hoping for. To save you a read, wife left? Came back like nothing happened. She made it about her. Nothing changed. I'm continuing to be suffering mentally, knowing nothing will change while trying to keep it together for our kids. Lots of takeout. The day after she packed up and left, my wife attempted to come back and take the kids with her to her sister's. Naturally, I was against this, and thankfully so was her whole family, including said sister. Not only was it not fair to our kids for her to sweep them away into a home that's not theirs, but to put that financial and housing stress on the rest of her family since she doesn't work and her sister and her family, husband and 3 kids, stays with their dad in the house they grew up in. After a little over a week of being away, I guess she cooled off, so she just decided that it would be fine if she walked in the door with her bags as if she just came back from Target. She came into my office while I was working and angrily stared at me while I sat on a conference call meeting with my team, and I couldn't just jump off as this is a busy time of the quarter for us. I guess that didn't sit well with her, because once I took off my headset and closed my laptop, she started yelling at me about how much I really don't care about her and her well-being overall. At that moment I couldn't do anything more than look at her and just shake my head. Mother-in-law came in after hearing my wife yelling and pulled her away, telling her to not bother me, while our nanny kept our youngest away from it all on the other side of the house. That night after the kids were put to bed, I sat in my office by myself with a drink, as I have been doing for the past nights, and my wife came in. We talked, we argued, we cried, we drank. One thing led to another and we were in bed. I wish I could say that was our making up, but the next sobering morning as we laid there, she went on about how hard it was for her the time she was gone. Literally. It was about her struggles staying at her family house in her old room with her dad and sister's family. How lucky I am to be able to stay here and do this and that and buy this or do that and not stress as much as they did. How easy my and everyone else's in our family lives are compared to hers, even though we had similar upbringings. My mind and heart broke that morning. I've been spiraling down since then, and this last week I made another attempt to reconcile and talk things out, but I was met with a shouting match while trying to express my current stress and anxieties with life and work in general. Wife. Well, do you know how hard this is all for me? You're supposed to help me be happy. Me. So when it comes to my happiness, stress, needs, and overall well-being, FK me, get over it, right? Wife. We all have our own problems, you need to figure it out and get over them. I don't know who the woman I am at home with is, but that wasn't the woman I married and vowed to spend my life with and raise our kids together. Since that conversation, I've been noticeably distant with her. I've been sleeping in my office or on the couch or with my kids in their bed after putting either one of them to sleep. Still doesn't change her starting her day at 10 a.m. and sitting on her phone talking to her mom groups between cooking meals with the kids in both mother-in-law and nanny's care. Nothing has changed, and I doubt that anything will change. Sadly, I think even if we got a divorce, nothing would change or feel different anyway, since during my wife's leaving the days seemed like any other day except with a little more takeout than usual. My main fear there isn't that I wouldn't just lose my wife, I'd lose my kids in the process. So I guess it's sad to say the grand finale to my story. Like a lot of men and some women I've talked to here, I'll just continue to smile and suffer in silence. First off, thank you for all the comments and DMs, some context and clarification, since admittingly my post was emotionally charged since I typed it up after another argument. Post-birth, our kids' pediatrician's office gave my wife those postpartum depression screening forms, and during the time of both she scored pretty high and was suggested to see a therapist. With our second child she scored significantly higher, and I made an effort to get her the help she needs. She refused, so entered mother-in-law and nanny for support. I know what people will say / think, but this is one of the reasons I'm not 100% ready to just give up and file our life together away. Also, I know silently suffering in the near and long run of our kids' future will not add to a healthy atmosphere, but neither would a bitter and hate-filled divorce. I know some have compared it to the ripping off a bandage, saying it'll hurt at first but that pain goes away, but I'd rather try to spare my kids thinking that their parents ended up hating each other because of them or something along those lines. I've told a few PPL I talked to in DM since my last post, a little more insight on my personal life. Prior to my promotion, I was a PM managing teams and budgets, so out of habit I planned for a lot of what-ifs. That being said, I made a number of contingency plans if sadly things went south. So yes, I have talked to a lawyer, 3 actually. Know our rights and what each of us are entitled to. Have a draft settlement created and on hold until I feel I need to use it. I know what I want and am willing to offer more than what is fair for our kids' well-being, but also have a plan if we end up going to court. It's 100% on me that I'm suffering in silence, but I'm too stubborn to just give up, so while I'm venting, I don't expect anyone to feel sorry for me. I endure it to keep the norm our kids know, ensure my MIL's treatments go uninterrupted, and of course the hope my wife would finally be open to give therapy a shot and climb together to a better place. New update, I'm done. Wife said I don't do and am not shit in front of the therapist and family Father's Day dinner. She got served. She was mad. She is trying to act perfect and I'm just waiting while taking care of my family, kids, my mom, and MIL. Oh well, I'll just ruin everyone else's life too and my family. Secondly, to clear some confusion. I did not get 2 bachelor's and a master's while working 2 jobs at the same time as some readers are assuming. Bachelor's degree number 1 was completed in the early 2000s. Bachelor's degree number 2 was earned through online courses over several years, taking 2 classes per semester, all while I held down 2 full-time jobs. The first job was at a hospital with a 36-48 schedule and the second job was at a big box store, where I worked 40 hours spread out over 7 days a week. I worked these jobs to pay for both my tuition and my wife's, as she decided to return to school before we had children. After completing bachelor's degree number 2 and entering the industry where I currently work, I was able to transition to one job and pursue my master's degree. So no, I did not earn 3 degrees simultaneously or in rapid succession. I'm surprised that I have to clarify this, as working 2 jobs while attending school isn't that uncommon, or at least that's what I thought. My wife chooses not to work. She does technically have a job. She just barely works it to the point we forget she has a job, as in she worked one day 5 months ago for 8 hours on a Tuesday. Kind of barely works. Her job and manager is really supportive, flex PRN model, and gives her a list of days they need coverage and she can choose to pick up a shift or not. While she can work more and only does just enough to keep up her license, she complains to our family of her career being on hold for one reason or the other, although she has the opportunity to work more if she opted to. All things considered, she has an available supportive circle around her for either decision she falls on. Our family, her job and I have made multiple offers and taken many steps to open that door for her to go back to work. That is nanny, MIL moved in to help, I work from home, her crazy flex PRN schedule, etc., etc. But here we are. I am and have been in therapy for myself already. Aside from what I deal with at home, my work can be very debilitating in regard to my mental health as well as physical at times. Since I can't find the support I need mentally and physically at home with my wife, I've opted to attend therapy rather than find comfort with someone outside of the home or at the bottom of a bottle. I've tried to express this to my wife, and as mentioned in my previous post, she has a habit of one-upping me. And here we are. My in-laws are still married. Given the circumstances in our home, my MIL moved in to help out my wife, while my SIL and her family moved back into their parents' house due to their own reasons. SIL and her family can save money while getting back on their feet, and my wife and I benefit from MIL's help, and we can keep a closer eye on her while she undergoes bi-monthly treatments. My wife, by means of questionnaires, is highly suspected to have PPD alongside with a history of symptomatic OCD, ADHD, amongst other ailments that over the years she refused to get evaluated for or refused to accept results given. I knew what I was getting into, and I loved and accepted my wife for these flaws as she did mine at the time. Spare me your gut. I don't feel sorry for you, or pity. I am like every other man who fell in love and wanted to give my person the best of me and the world I can offer. But again, here we are. There are many men who identify strongly with traditional masculinity or the red pill ideology who complain and say that I am simping over my wife. While I respect your opinions and perspectives, I will outright say that if this situation were only affecting my life, I would have left a long time ago. As one Redditor mentioned in a previous comment that stuck with me, I am the kind of person who will take a bullet for his kids. Perhaps it was meant in a different context, but I am committed to protecting my children from any physical or mental harm. I am willing to metaphorically take the bullet as needed. I believe that other fathers would similarly respond to the duty to protect their children, and that's why I endured as much as I have. For the time being, I would prefer that my wife direct any problems towards me rather than our kids. Thank you all for the comments and reaching out. I've met many strangers who have become great Reddit pen pals and some who have been in the know of every step that has been progressing to this point. I am surprised at how far this has gone, from other subreddits, other platforms, and even YouTube. Love me, hate me, say it's all fake, no matter where you stand, thank you for all the constructive comments and DMs to check in. Our kids and myself are going to be alright moving forward. Now for the update, the end of an era. This will be shorter than some expected, as really there's not much to say but just satiate the questions some of you may have had and give people the satisfaction of the I told you so moment on Reddit. After a hard push from our family via an intervention, my wife and I finally attempted to go to marriage counseling. I'm sure many of you can guess how well that went. Blame, tears, regrets, gaslighting, with a side of I am the reason for her life being ruined and horrible. Again. Just this time in front of a licensed therapist instead of Reddit or mom groups. In the end, everything the therapist suggested and noted went over her head and ignored as it was against the grain of her status quo. One thing I guess worth saying was the therapist asked if she could recall when she last truly felt happy. Her response was about 12 or so years ago. Please note, 12 years ago she was still in her 20s childless. Living with her ex. A vastly different time and position in life. I know it's petty of me but I guess if that's when she was last happy, it wouldn't be that far of a stretch for her to find that happiness again since her ex is in the same apartment, job and place in life that he was 12 years ago. Which is fine, if that's how you want to live life. I try not to judge but in my 40s with kids, going clubbing 3-4 days a week is not my jam anymore. And of course, I don't want my kids around a mom and company who drowns themselves in White Claws. To add, I know some will ask. I know and can confirm she hasn't physically cheated on me but can't confirm if she did emotionally. If that's the right term. After said therapy session I checked all her phone records and didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but I also didn't bother to check apps like IG or Snapchat. I know I'm probably boring, but shout out to all the Costco dads whose Sunday Funday includes making rounds with kids for samples. The following weekend was Father's Day, and this year is expected not that big of a celebration as it is for many dads out there. Our family got together to celebrate with a BBQ and just simple family time, and my wife treated it like any other day. Sleep in, get up, cook, phone, shop. Attempt to play with kids, phone. During said family BBQ my wife said she felt ill, so she sat around most of the day while the rest of the family as a whole made the experience enjoyable. When everything was set up and the family all sat at the table, her parents and sister's family, my mother, our kids, admittingly it was a great spread. Nothing extravagant but just a great meal for everyone. I was conversing with my brother-in-law about both of our kids' school Father's Day activities and I assume my wife overheard when I mentioned that it was a little sad to see some kids sit alone without their fathers during the breakfast with dad event I attended. She blurted out with a laugh loud enough for the whole room to hear, "It's not like you do anything anyway, I could have gone instead." At that moment I was red and at a loss for words sitting there processing what she said in my head, while the dining room went dead silent. My MIL broke the awkwardness and in response said, "Well, maybe if you feel that way, one of you should divorce the other." My wife looked at my MIL confused that she would respond with that and laughed mockingly in my direction and with her hand pointing at me said, "As if another woman would want a man like him. Just look at you." While the room sat silent. I was angry, heartbroken, confused, and embarrassed all at the same time. In manly man fashion, I just nodded my head in silence, stood up and picked up my keys and got in my truck and drove off to get a drink while trying to ignore the cries of the rest of the family and our kids telling me to stay. I don't know what was said or done while I was out of the house the rest of Sunday, because I couldn't bring myself to check our house cameras. But when I returned early Monday morning, the house had a completely different feel. As usual, I woke up around 6, got the house and our oldest ready for school drop-off. Checked emails, checked messages, nothing out of the ordinary. As I was getting dressed to leave, my wife laid in our bed snoring lightly. All I could do was look at her and think of what we had, and now lost. I've decided. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I texted my lawyer that morning to move forward with serving her. Fast forward to last week, she was served at our home, reminder to people I had no choice but to be there because I work from home. She had, I guess what you could call a mini meltdown and came into my office screaming how could I do this to her. Her mother intervened, and that was met with me supposedly turning her whole family against her. But I digress, I probably would have felt bad if it wasn't immediately followed by the rest of her week acting as if she's been this active and attentive wife and mother the past few years. Sure, people can say she's making an attempt, but she's made many attempts, and historically we fall back to where we've been. For those curious, I am aiming for full or at least majority custody of our kids. I already and will continue to cover all the expenses for our kids, insurance, tuition. Both of our kids will be attending private schools come fall, medical bills, etc. My MIL has given me the courage and strength that helped supplement my own mother's support throughout this. Basically she is what I hoped the kind of mother-wife my wife would have been to our kids and me. Out of respect for my MIL as well as per my own mother's shared wishes, I will continue to help oversee and contribute financial help if needed during her treatments. While some may feel I should cut their whole family off, I know the hardships pushed onto a family while dealing with cancer and have dealt with it firsthand as a family member and care provider on both sides of the desk. All in all, I'm prepared to go to war if needed, but I just want a clean no-fuss divorce. My wife has no alimony coming, so sorry for the Redditors and mommy gang Facebook groups saying she needs to divorce me first and get that sweet, sweet alimony money. 1. We live in a state that does not typically enforce alimony. 2. She has a means of gainful employment immediately. 3. To help curb any possible problems, I will cover her insurance and bills until either divorce is finalized or when she gains full employment. So that's that. I'm done and waiting for the steps to be taken for everything to be finalized. Sorry it wasn't as exciting of a story with plot twists as some may have hoped for, but that's life. Not sure I'll update this once it's all finalized, which probably won't be for a few more months depending if we go to war or not.